All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to this Mercury retrograde event. There are a few of us, and we're going to go through a wonderful stanza, and hopefully we can make something of it. It is not. It's not an easy one. We've exhausted all the easy ones. Actually, they weren't so easy either, were they? So this one appears to be about the creation of systems, perhaps the solar system. We will see. Larger systems probably have an analogy to it. The various incarnations of our solar system may be involved here. Okay, I'm going to trust that everybody can hear me, that everybody can see the screen. Let me know, okay, if that's not the case. And we will proceed as if nothing happened. Nothing almost did happen. That's ontologically nothing was about to happen. All right. Here we are. I think the thing to do, since some of you who would have liked to have been at the meditation were not, I will read the stanza, and even the people in class who heard it during meditation could probably stand to hear it just one more time in their life. Okay, we're going to pronounce the AUM as Om, which I think is the correct thing to do, even though it has at once a more inclusive meaning and a less inclusive meaning. We will discuss that. Okay. Om, said the Mighty One, and sounded forth the word. The sevenfold waves of matter resolved themselves, and varied forms appeared. Each took its place. Each in the sphere ordained, they waited for the sacred flood to enter and to fill. The builders responded to the sacred sound. In musical collaboration they attended to the work. They built in many spheres, beginning with the third. Upon this plane their work commenced. They built the sheath of Atma and strung it to its primary. Om, said the Mighty One, let now the work proceed. Let the builders of the air continue with this plan. The Deva Lord and builders upon the plane of air worked with the forms within that sphere which is reckoned mainly theirs. Okay. Okay. They wrought for union, each in his group assigned. The molds grew fast beneath their hands. The sacred plane of juncture, the fourth great plane, became the sphere within the greater circle which marked the goal for man. Om, said the Mighty One, he breathed forth to the fifth, the plane which is the burning ground, the meeting place for fire. This time a cosmic note is heard beneath the sound systemic. The fire within, the fire without, meet with the fire ascending. The guardians of the cosmic fire, the devas of Phohatic heat, watch o'er the forms that formless stood, waiting a point in time. The builders of a lesser grade, devas who work with matter, wrought at the forms. They stood in fourfold order. Upon the threefold levels in empty silence stood the forms. They vibrated. They responded to the key, yet useless stood and uninhabited. Om, said the Mighty One, let the waters too bring forth. The builders of the watery sphere, the denizens of moisture, produced the forms that move within the kingdom of Varuna. They grew and multiplied. In constant flux they swayed, undulated. Each ebb of cosmic motion increased the endless flow. The ripple of the forms was seen. Om, said the Mighty One, let the builders deal with matter. The molten solidified, the solid forms were built, the crust cooled, the rocks congealed. The builders wrought in tumult to produce the forms of Maya. When the rocky strata were completed, the work stood in completion. The builders of the lowest grade announced the work was finished. Forth from the rocky strata emerged the covering next. The builders of the second agreed the work was done. The first and second on the upward way stood forth in fourfold form. The inner five was somewhat seen by those whose sight was keen. Om, said the Mighty One, and gathered in his breath. The spark within the peopling third impelled to further growth. The builders of the lowest forms, manipulating densest Maya, merged their production with the forms built by the watery ones. Matter and water merged, produced the third in time. Ascension thus progressed. The builders worked in union. They called the guardians of the fiery zone. Matter and water mixed with fire, the inner spark within the form, were blended all together. There looks like there's a mistake there. It should be a plural. The inner sparks within the forms, the inner spark within the form, were. You can't use the word were. Anyway, perhaps that's a mistake. It's not good English. The Mighty One looked down. The forms met his approval. Forth came the cry for further light. Again he gathered in the sound. He drew to higher levels the feeble spark of light. Another tone was heard, the sound of cosmic fire, hid in the sons of Manus. They called to their primaries. The lower four, the higher three, and the cosmic fifth met at the great inbreathing. Another sheath was formed. Okay, so there is a benefit from examining this all together. We took it apart, we worked with it slowly. Now we'll work with it even more slowly and more carefully and see if there are at least some ideas which can emerge here. Nothing definitive, I would say, but obviously it is the story of creation, at least in our solar system, and involving the planetary logoi. There is a chart in Cosmic Fire which is the chart of the three outpourings. Here it is. And this chart is somewhat the one which should be used when we are dealing with this this stanza. This stanza is about 2 times longer than any stanza we have thus far dealt with, right? Maybe 3 times longer. So it's going to be a bit of an ordeal, but when we are finished with it, hopefully we have some sense of a planetary and a solar systemic creation. Here is the first outpouring. This is a Phohatic Brahmic third aspect outpouring, and it goes straight from the sort of super cosmic physical planes through the cosmic physical plane, touching the first subplane of every plane. So, or maybe even creating them. In other words, matter is being differentiated in such a way that atomic matter is created. That's the first outpouring. Is strictly material. It's not a an outpouring which deals with form building. And yet, as I have said, every tiny atom of whatever dimension is really a form. So there is some minute form building going on, but not the aggregation of those building blocks that the second aspect deals with. So this goes all the way down to the lowest 7th plane. Now the stanza continues in such a way that the second outpouring is mentioned as well, and the return of the second outpouring after it touches the lowest level of the cosmic physical plane and begins its evolutionary swing upward towards the higher aspect, the highest aspect of the monad. Whether that monad is, the human monad or the planetary or the systemic monad, whatever. Those three aspects are listed here. But what we see, and I think you'll think this is correct, that the whole stanza ends right here. It doesn't go all the way up. The monad has descended sufficiently to create the causal vehicle with the help of the solar angels, and that's where the stanza ends. Now, of course, maybe other stanzas pick it up from there. I know that the way we began this whole process this week, we've been working for 2 days now. This is the third. We began with what I called the understandable, the understandable stanzas. we dealt with individualization. We dealt with the struggles of the personality in its darkened cave of a limited consciousness. We dealt with the causal body and its beauty and its destruction. And then we dealt with the laggards, or the so-called solar angels who refuse to incarnate. And by the way, I found the reference I was looking for. And somewhere in the middle of the night, it came to me. And I'll show you what it is. This is about whether there was sin or no sin for the 30 billion solar angels who refuse to incarnate. Because, after all, if the monads they are serving refuse to incarnate, how can they incarnate? So here is the statement there, and I want to just, I'm having a little trouble with speed on my computer. I'm going faster than my computer is going. So occasionally it may be necessary to slow down. This would be a terrible thing. Okay. In the fact of the turning of the monadic wheel covering the period of 3 solar systems, 3 major solar systems, right? Because the 3rd major solar system is really the 6th. Lies the mystery of monadic self-will and the secret as to why some of the monads refused to incarnate, while others fell and thus proceeded along the present lines of evolution. See, yesterday we were talking about the Watchers of Fire who had refused to incarnate. There were 30 billion of them, and 60 billion were so-called obedient, and they entered into the causal evolution and submersed themselves in the dense physical body of the solar logos. But 30 billion did not. They stayed out of that submersion. So, as I said, if the monads refuse to incarnate, the solar angels who are to serve them cannot incarnate. That makes sense, doesn't it? Because it's a monadic decision. Now, what DK is saying here is that this decision is not necessarily a sin. So let's take a look. They refuse to incarnate because of internal group conditions brought about through the evolutionary processes of the past kalpas. So they had to remain on their own high plane. And I think, a lot that refused to incarnate, so to speak, were the first ray monads whose day comes in the next solar system. It will therefore be apparent that the question of what constitutes sin and evil is far more intricate than even appears upon the surface. From our limited vision, it appears to be sin to fall into incarnation. We have the fall from paradise and all of that, the fallen angels, as if that's a sin, but it's not. And equally, sin or self-will, self-satisfaction, to remain unevolved and uninvolved upon the higher planes. Both are looked at as sin. Yet, both groups followed the law of their being, and the solution of the mystery lies in that which is to come. So I hope that that is a clarification about why those 30 billion that in the stories of mythology and the projections of the psyche look stubborn, withholding, ungenerous, self-absorbed, that they are, quote-unquote, in a deeper scientific sense, following the law of their being by not incarnating. I also examined a bit further those terms which we had begun to use, Buddhas of activity, Buddhas of love, Buddhas of will, sons of mind, which is a hugely protean term. It's a term that is used on all different levels for all different kinds of beings. It's used for solar angels, and when it's used in connection with man, I found a reference that said lesser sons of mind. So we could use sons of mind for solar angels, sons of mind for man, and it really means manasaputras, and we can use them for planetary logoi as well. So there were so many different ways of applying that term, no wonder it was confusion. But sons of love are second-ray monads, and sons of will are first-ray monads. So I established for myself that when I said that Buddhas and monads were equivalent, they aren't really equivalent. The Buddhas of activity are very highly developed beings who were planetary logoi in a previous solar system. Now, the Buddhas of love are gathering now. Remember that sentence? The Buddhas of love are gathering now. And it turns out that they can't possibly yet be as evolved as the Buddhas of activity because they didn't have that previous solar system in which to evolve in the same way. So we found out that our Buddha, Gautama Buddha, is a Buddha of love, and he's probably not a very advanced Buddha of love because he took the place of one who had moved onto the chain level from the globe level. I'm trying to explain my mistakes of yesterday. Okay, you know, I had a little thought about what is correct, and now I've refined that to a certain degree. So the Buddhas of activity, or their higher prototypes, exist on three different levels in terms of our planet. They exist on the globe level. That's where the Buddhas of activity are found. They're higher prototypes on the chain level, and still higher existences, which are still higher prototypes on the scheme level. And I said, well, is this true also of Buddhas of love and Buddhas of will? And it is true. There was a little sentence hiding from me where it said, you know, everything we've said hierarchically about the Buddhas of activity is true of the Buddhas of love. So there are going to be Buddhas of love on a globe level. And those Buddhas of love, one of them is Gautama Buddha, however we want to think of him. But not yet discussed are the Buddhas of love on the chain level and the Buddhas of love on the scheme level. They have yet to develop. They have plenty of time. There's 155 trillion years left in our solar system. And since our planet is the base of the spine center of the solar logos, or at least coming into that function, I think our planet will be around for a while. It may not have started at the beginning like Venus did, but it will be around. So we'll have plenty of trillions of years, according to the Hindu chronology, to develop our planetary power. So those Buddhas of love in this second solar system will develop. Now, what about the Buddhas of will? In the same way that there's only a sprinkling of first-ray monads or sons of will in our solar system at this time who came in because of karmic necessity, whereas the others said no, and their solar angels said no, maybe that 30 billion, they will develop in the next solar system as will the Buddhas, as will the monads. So the human monads on the first ray and the Buddhas of will, their solar system is the next, the sixth or the major third solar system. So I hope that clarifies everything. The reason I think I got a little confused is because Gautama the Buddha is so close to humanity. In other words, he's a monad who is an initiate of the seventh degree partial, along with the Christ. Well, that's pretty close. That's not like a Buddha of activity who many Mahamanvantaras ago had been a master. That's a huge space. And here's Gautama the Buddha very close to us. He's a moon chain humanity, and he's close to his monadic nature, and he hasn't even entirely fulfilled monadic possibilities. So I thought, well, if he's a Buddha, then Buddhas must be monads. And of course they are monads. But the point is that the monads, human monads, are nowhere near as developed as what these Buddhas have been, the Buddhas of activity and the Buddhas of love and will to come. They are higher order beings, I believe. It's not entirely clarified, but at least I'm no longer automatically equating the word Buddha with monad. Okay? So I hope that explains just a little bit about where we were yesterday. We had a lot of different terms, and I wonder if it's worth just looking at some of those terms that we had. We had, what stanza was that, the last one we did? Was it stanza 8? Or was stanza 9? Stanza 9. I just want to pick up the pieces, you know. Stanza 9, down here at the very end, if I can find this, excuse me. Well, there's a lot of stuff here. Here. Oh, no, that's not it. Oh, yes, the Lords of Love. That's another problem. They can even be planetary logoi, not just monads of love. Here are these terms that we were having trouble with, trying to put them in the right place. Buddhas of activity, called Pratyeka Buddhas. Buddhas of love. The same hierarchical grading is seen as in connection with the Buddhas of action. Globe, chain, scheme. So are there Buddhas of love now, right now, on the chain level? Probably. How developed are they? We don't know. They're more developed than the ones on the globe level. And are there Buddhas of love on the scheme level? Yes. Okay. Now we have Buddhas of will. So let's consider them to be great beings. Now we have Lords of Love. That was a term. And a Lord of Love can even be a planetary logos, but also a monad on the second ray. Lords of Power can be equivalent to Buddhas of Power. Sons of Mind is the most confusing term because there are so many different assignments for these Manasaputras. But it depends on whether you're a lesser Manasaputra, a Manasaputra, or a divine Manasaputra. And Manasaputra means son of mind. Okay, and here's that phrase, the lesser sons of mind. In an attempt to give a synthetic picture of the unfolding mind of God as it works out in its plans through us who are the lesser sons of mind. I'm not going to do all of this repeating, but here are the coming of the sons of mind to earth, and there the term is used as solar angels. Well, anyway, look at this. All souls on the mental plane, this is a real synthetic statement. All souls on the mental plane take the forms of the solar angels of the divine sons of mind. Divine sons of mind, solar angels, right? But we human beings are lesser sons of mind. So that's the way sons of mind can be used in a blinding way to mean either one of those. And look at this. Here he puts it all together. The sons of mind, human souls, solar angels, the divine sons of God, who in full self-consciousness work out certain well-seen ends through the medium of the human family. So there we have this merging of the solar angel and the human higher ego. DK has blinded this quite a bit. Sons of the heart, they are monads on the second ray. Sons of power, they are monads on the first ray. Sons of will, they are monads on the first ray. Buddhas of creation, or we might call them Buddhas of creativity, are the same as Buddhas of activity and Buddhas of action. Am I leaving anything out? Probably. But at least that should help clarify the strata of these different beings. The highest are the Buddhas, then come the solar angels. Remember that the Buddhas of activity were planetary logoi along the monastic line in the previous solar system. So since solar angels are not yet planetary logoi, obviously the Buddhas are the highest, okay, in their three categories. Even the Pratyeka Buddhas on our globe are very high compared to solar angels. Solar angels will go back to the sun, and they will be breathed out again in groups to become planetary logoi. So they're working their way to being able to become these Buddhas. As a matter of fact, you know, what's really so interesting is our little Buddha, a magnificent being in terms of humanity, but he's a long way from being a planetary logos, you know, although that's maybe the path that he's on. Okay, Buddhas are the highest, solar angels, Agnisvatas are the second, and human monads are the third. Let's just get that in order, and I think we'll be okay. Now, you know, we could all ask, what in the world are we studying this for? You know, because we can't possibly ascertain the truth of all these stanzas. When I say ascertain, I mean achieve certainty. We cannot do it. Or at least I can't do it, and I don't think we can do it. But we, you know, we can put a couple of pieces of the jigsaw on the table and see what they seem to imply. And we can get a deeply intuitive sense. These stanzas do not appeal, as I've said before, to the concrete mind. They can be backed up, they can be reinforced by the concrete mind, but the concrete mind cannot interpret them. It can only facilitate the interpretation. But what the stanzas do is they call to our intuition. And when they call to our intuition, when we struggle with these stanzas, we are developing a faculty which needs development in our system. It needs to be organized. So even though it's very frustrating sometimes, it could be this, it could be that, what in the world is it? We are developing the faculty of intuition and certainly of abstract thinking in the attempt to understand them. Is that clear? Is it clear to me? All right. Now, going back to stanza 2. I did want to do that little review because I felt dissatisfied with some things that were said yesterday. And I wanted to clarify that distinction between Buddhas and monads, even though the Buddha, our Buddha, who is very close to being a human monad and really is one of those Buddhas. I can hardly explain that, how he could have such a high status as a Buddha of love on our globe, being only really a recently graduated human monad. Okay, here we go. Now, why is the word AUM used? DK in Raise and the Initiation spends a lot of time telling you don't use the word AUM. It's like Amen. It means you are imprisoning the spirit in matter. He says use the word Om, O-M. And AUM, of course, is often pronounced Om. But the word AUM has a more inclusive meaning than that meaning which simply represents the creation of form, although here there's a lot of form creation. It is sort of the inclusive word containing the first aspect, second aspect, and third aspect of divinity all rolled into one. Now, sometimes you see the word written A period U period M period, and sometimes you see it AUM together. When I see it AUM together without the A period U period M period, I think of it as a synthetic word. When I see them separate, I think of more the division within that word, representing all three aspects. When I see it together like this, AUM, I think of it as the 3 in 1. When I see it A period period period, I think of the 3 separate aspects. Now, DK in the Raise and the Initiations, he kind of spells that out. Here's a chapter on the sacred word in which he deals with that particularly. So anyway, I want to kind of set up our understanding. I want to go to that fascinating page in A Treatise on Cosmic Fire where he deals, you're familiar with this page, I know. He deals with the sounding of the word on 7 different planes, and he's very specific about it. So if we can discuss the sounding of the word on 7 different planes, we can go into this more abstract stanza and perhaps get something more out of it. So, love song. Okay, here it is. And I think it's worth reading it to set it up, okay? So, form production. It's on page 926 of Cosmic Fire. And The program is coming through, correct, Anne? At least visually, and it's coming through? Yeah. All right. Okay, so here are the 7 differentiations of the logoic word. Now, we're only taken through AUMs in the stanza, but here it breaks it down into something amazingly beautiful, talking about how even the most minute forms are developed through the sounding of the sacred word. It doesn't start out as AUM, okay, which is a synthetic word of the 3 higher planes. It starts out as A. The logoic breath on the first plane, logoic, it's called the sound A, Ah, the father sound, the very first, the initiating sound. This is the first etheric appearance of a solar system. This is a cosmic etheric appearance, correct? Upon the atomic subplane of the cosmic physical plane, the seeds of life are all latent. Faculty inheres from an earlier solar essence. So there's some kind of abilities that are embodied in this letter A, which come from the previous incarnation of our solar logos. But we're right now in the second solar system, but coming from the first major solar system, which was the one right before us, there are tendencies which are embodied in the letter A. Now notice the additive nature of the word as it appears, because when we hear the sound on the second or monadic plane, it's A-U, A-U, or sometimes pronounced O. This is the sound A-U. This is the body of the solar system in the second ether. The monadic plane is a form-creating plane. Only the forms created are in the form of geometrical sound on that plane. This plane is the archetypal plane. Well, it's not the only archetypal plane. All of the cosmic ethers are archetypal. But this is the monadic level, okay? This plane is the archetypal plane, and let's just say that the archetype of whatever we are supposed to be, you and I, is contained in our monad on that plane at this time. The seeds of life are vibrating or germinating. The 7 centers of energy are apparent. The one Deva Agni is seen as 7. Now, the Deva is like the personality of the solar logos. So this personality is working out on its etheric plane. The form is now potentially perfect. Now, it's not a form made of matter such as we know it, but it's what we are meant to be. Every one of us has a monadic destiny. We are meant to be something perfect, relatively perfect anyway, within a chakra of the planetary logos, and that perfection is embodied in the 7 great groups of monads in which we find our place. 1 of 7, we will be found there. On the higher plane, we'll be found as 1 of 3. So that's a synthetic sound. It combines the first aspect sound Ah with the second aspect sound U. Now, when you look at the U, it sort of implies the pilgrimage of the circle down into matter and up again. It's the whole idea of circular return. It's a revolution of the monadic wheel. Ah and U, A-U or O. Now we come to the AUM, which combines the sounds of all the planes. In a way, you could say that U is the sound of the second plane, but the Ah is invested in it because the U came out of the Ah. You could say that M is the sound, the M of matter, the M of Brahma, is the sound of the third plane. And yet, since the U came out of the A, and the M comes out of the U and the A, all 3 of them have to be used. So this is the logoic triple word. It's on the 3rd or atmic plane, the sound A-U-M. The body of the solar system in substance on the 3rd etheric plane is seen, and the 3 function as 1. This is a kind of a Trinitarian level. The 3 are 1 on this atmic plane, the first plane of Brahma, right? Brahma is fivefold, and he begins on the atomic plane. The number of the previous solar system was what? We talked about it yesterday. 5. And the number of our present solar system, the Vishnu system, is 7. And next is the Shiva system, 9. We got it. And when you add those together, it's very interesting. 5 plus 7 is 12, plus 9 is 21. Add and unify them all, you get the mystic number 22, which interestingly enough correlates with our solar logos now, whose personality ray is 2 and whose soul ray is 2. I think our solar logos is just 222. Okay, well, maybe fourth ray monad, but ultimately a second ray monad, I think. Okay, so the triple energy of the logos is coordinated, and nothing now can hinder the work of evolution. That reminds you, doesn't it, of cosmic, white magic. Nothing now can hinder the work from going forward. Remember that rule in white magic. So it has come to the level of precipitation, and according to law, it will proceed. The 3 groups of devas are active, and the archetypal form is in process of materialization. Now, we had the archetypal form maybe on level number 2, and now it starts to materialize. In other words, the 5 planes of superhuman evolution are really material planes. So, whenever you have a plane of 7, the first 2 subplanes are considered occult and abstract. And once you reach the lower 5, you are into the area of matter. Now, what planet rules this cosmic subplane? You know it. What planet rules this cosmic subplane, the atomic plane? Silence. You know this. Oh, it's something, that's right, the brains are frozen. Okay, it's true. It is Saturn, is it not? Saturn is the Lord of Brahma. He is the representation of Brahma. He's the great third ray Lord, and he rules the atomic plane. Where do you see that? No, listen, if you want to know what planets rule what planes, just come over here. It does, and the very lowest level as well, but it also rules the 3rd level. Yes, it does rule the entire cosmic physical plane. That would be Neptune. And the mental, what would that be? Yeah. Here's Saturn. See? This is so just turn to page 35 in Esoteric Astrology, and you will see which planets are the rulers of the cosmic physical ethers and dense levels. It's all right there. Now, yeah, exactly. So, but we don't need to sidetrack on that. But that's an interesting and important point. All right. Now, going back to where we were. Yes, the computer is a little bit wonky. It's if you're very lucky, it won't cooperate at all, and we'll have to talk about something practical. All right. So this is the logoic triple word, and there are 3. Now, if there are 3 groups of devas on the atomic plane, and they're called, aren't they, in a way, the triple flowers? We just saw that, right? The lesser builders are triple flowers. I wonder if there are 2 groups on the monadic plane and 1 group on the logoic plane. On the other hand, we are told that the first 3 aspects of divinity are all of them triple. So maybe there are 3 groups of devas on each. Now we come down to the level of embodiment. The logoic septenary word is not 3-fold, it's 7-fold on the Buddhic plane. The 4th plane, the 7-syllabled word, the logoic etheric centers become active. Now, what that means, in a way, is that the chakras of our solar logos, which are the planetary logoi, are found on the Buddhic plane. I don't think that's the complete story by any means. I think just as it is so for humanity, I think it might be for the planetary logos, but let's in general say that all these chakras are reflected on the Buddhic plane. See, what are the implications? Take a look over here. Yes, this is the big chart we use most often. What do you see in all of these triangles here? Let's take a look at the emotional level, just for fun. What do you see? What do you seem to see when you're looking at these triangles? What are the triangles, actually? And what are the little circles? What do they represent? I'm going to make it really big so it's impossible to miss it. They represent centers. They represent chakras. Now, what do we see about their placement? Interrelationship between the chakras, yes. And why aren't they all on the fourth level? Because there's an analogy here between these four, let's say, systemic ethers. On the every lower plane has four ethers. So here are four ethers on the emotional plane, relatively speaking, ethers. Now, we see an interesting thing that these chakras are not all on the fourth ether, are they? They are. But it often seems implied that the solar logoic chakras are all on the fourth cosmic ether, and yet the human chakras are not all on the fourth systemic ether. So is there something that is analogously necessary, analogically necessary, that DK is not saying? I want to experiment with the idea that in the same way that the human throat center is on the third ether, the human heart center on the second ether, and the human head center and maybe ajna center is on the first ether, depending on what subplanes we're talking about, I want to experiment with the idea that the solar logoic throat center is on the plane Atma. I want the solar logoic heart center to be on the plane, the monadic plane, and the solar logoic head center to be on the logoic plane. I believe that's analogically necessary. This is GO, which means, like gonads, it means sacral center. And the S is the spleen. And what's missing here, base of spine, the base of spine is here, solar plexus is here, sacral center is here. What's missing is the ajna center, which is probably on one of the subplanes, the subplanes of the atomic level of the systemic ethers. In other words, DK is not giving us all the subplanes. For every one of our solar planes, like the etheric physical plane, there are 7 subdivisions. But each one of those has in itself 7 subdivisions. So in fact, here we have 49 subdivisions. And even if 2 chakras, like the head chakra, maybe Alta Major, maybe Ajna Center, are all on the first subplane, they'll probably be on different subplanes of that first subplane. So, you know, that gets a little bit intricate, of course, and it's just speculation, but I believe that's the way it works. Anyway, when I look at this... Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes, those 3, and I believe they're all on the highest level, but I believe they are differentiated according to subplane on the highest level. So anyway, for the time being, I'm experimenting with the idea that as it is in the case of man, so it is in the case of the planetary logos and the solar logos, that their etheric chakras are not, all of them, just laid out on the Buddhic plane. I'm also experimenting with the idea that there may be reflections of those chakras on the Buddhic plane, but that they have a higher presence on the Atmic atomic, monadic, and logoic levels. All right, that's a little digression, but we're almost, if you get enough digressions going, you're almost ready to begin. All right, so Om, said the Mighty One, and sounded forth the word. Well, who is the Mighty One? Well, okay, do you want to take it all the way up to the one about whom not may be said? Probably you could find an analogy. You could find probably one Mighty One might be a cosmic logos. The one about whom not may be said is, in my view, a supercosmic logos. And then there's a sub-parabrahmatic logos and a parabrahmic logos. All of them could say Om, and all of them could create in their system. And maybe they do. But this one, I'm trying to think of this Mighty One, hopefully, as our own solar logos, who has reemerged from Pralaya, having had a previous solar system along the third ray line, and is now creating a second ray solar system. So until I know better or differently, I'm going to think of it as the solar logos, just to try to keep it in due bounds. Om, said the Mighty One, and sounded forth the word. Now, is the maybe AUM is the word? It's a 3-in-1 word. It contains power, love, and intelligence. It contains all of them. Now, the 7-fold waves of matter resolved themselves, and varied forms appeared. So what does that mean to us? It almost reminds us of that question about whether light, which is matter, is dense or whether it is in wave form. So the wave, which is not yet strictly material in terms of the prakriti of our solar system, becomes more concrete. The wave resolves itself into density, but there are 7 waves, or the 7-fold waves. Maybe there are 7 waves and each one is 7-fold, but why would there be 7 waves? Because it's a little louder? Well, okay, we're not yet to the kingdom level, but we certainly are to the plane level, aren't we? Isn't that so? So there are to be 7 planes, so there have to be 7 waves, each one of them being 7-fold, and at first they're in wave form, but we are talking about the first outpouring. What does the first outpouring do? What does it do to the space, let us say, in which the solar logos is to express himself? What does it provide, the first outpouring? Breath? The breath is, they are all breaths. The outpourings are breaths because they are streams of divine energy which have a particular purpose. But what is the particular purpose of the stream of divine energy which comes forth on the first outpouring? What does it give you in this space? Because actually, the answer is so obvious that I'm almost making it difficult by asking the question. Remember we discussed 2 days ago monadic essence and elemental essence? Okay. This gives you prototypical matter. It gives you the atomic matter of each one of the 7 solar planes. That's what's happening here. Fohat Brahma, on the first outpouring, resolves itself in a 7-fold wave into 7 types of atomic matter, each one of which is vibratorily different, and each one of which is providing the fundamental building block for each one of the 7 planes. So that's what's happening here. The 7-fold waves resolved themselves, and varied forms appeared. Now, you know, what's a form? Let's just say, I want to say that what I should have done is to, but I'll make it this way. Okay. Is a molecule a form? In occultism? We would probably have to say yes, wouldn't we? Okay, let's just put it like this. Molecules on the 6 subsidiary subplanes are forms formed by the second outpouring. Now maybe we are simply talking about the first outpouring, perhaps. But the way they put it together here, it looks like a combination. Oh, look what I've done. Look what I've done. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm a little bit disorganized here. I'm just going to blame Mercury. But there is the sevenfold word. I was telling you about that. The greater body of vitality is forming. I can't go through all of this. I recommend it to you. Then the great word sounds on the 5th plane, and there are 35 stanzas. There's a sevenfold word on the 4th plane, 35 stanzas on the 5th plane. On the 6th plane, there are 42 verses of a love poem, which is really, I think, very interesting. This is the song of the logoic song of love or desire. The 6th plane, a poem and 42 verses. And finally, when you get down to the 7th plane, this deserves careful study. There are 49 chapters of the Book of Life. Now this, you could write a book on this page alone. It would be fascinating to see how everything breaks down numerically, giving us all of creation in the form of a word. So I realized I hadn't finished there. I had stopped at the Buddhic plane. I know I'm giving this a short shrift, as they say. I'm not giving it the attention it deserves, because we could spend a couple of hours on this right now, but at least you see that the word starts with A, A-U, A-U-M, then the Buddhic word, which is a 7-syllable word, then 35, what did they call it? 35 stanzas appear next. You kind of wonder about the stanzas of Dzyan, don't you? Anyway, 35 stanzas appear. Then comes the 42 verses of the love poem and the 49 chapters in the Book of Life. And that is such a beautiful thing to have in our mind in terms of how creation was accomplished on the 7 solar planes of the cosmic physical plane, i.e., our solar system. Now, having completed that, so to speak, we can go back to the stanza itself. Okay, so forms are being created. The 7 types of matter are appearing, and the 6 subsidiary types of matter on each plane are appearing in the first part of the second outpouring. In other words, what I'm trying to say here is that this very first verse, this very first paragraph in this stanza seems to cover not only the first outpouring, but the first part of the second outpouring. It collapses everything that took place over just, I don't know, trillions of years. It collapses these things into just a few words, meaning matter was formed atomically, and molecular matter was formed, and molecular matter are considered forms, the varied forms. And I want to say here, now just be patient with this, of molecular matter. We are only, DK said, in cosmic fire, I have given you only the ABCs. So we are like children learning the alphabet of occultism, and it seems very complicated to us, and how in the world can our poor little brains deal with this? It's just ABC. So even if you have just a few useful conceptions about what is happening here, that in itself is worth a lot. And the details will be filled in over the next 155 trillion years that our solar system is said to go through. That sounds like a long time, doesn't it? Hang in there. Okay. I mean, we're not even born yet. You know what I mean? We're not even born. When we take the fourth initiation, it's like birth. You can breathe again. You'll be on the cosmic Buddhic ether, and the sun will rise, and the air will flow, because it's the airplane, and you'll be born again. Right now, well, it is the starting of a phase of the path of return in which reincarnation is no longer necessary. We're on the path of return. Ever since we made this turn down here in the mineral kingdom, the monad, I think we got some rather big things here. Here we are. Ever since we made this turn right here, we, the monad in extension, being immetalized, have been on the path of return. So, two parts to the second outpouring. It fits, doesn't it? Because it's dual, right? Right. Excuse me. All right. So let us proceed. We've already read several words. It's very good. Okay. Om, says the Mighty One, and sounded forth the word which we will assume is AUM. The sevenfold waves of matter, and it doesn't tell you how many there are, but I'm assuming there are 7, and each one of them is sevenfold, resolve themselves, which means there was a precipitation from wave form into particulate form. A precipitation occurred. And because the precipitation occurred, the varied forms of molecular matter appeared. Each took its place, each within the sphere ordained, and they waited for the sacred flood to enter and fulfill. Now, the second ray is the form-building ray. So what I just want to say, without a whole lot of explanation, is that the archetypes in the world of being appeared. The archetypes upon the cosmic etheric planes appeared, and they are to be mirrored as actual forms in the lower 3 worlds. So this is the appearance of the forms, the ideational forms, which are in the mind of God, the Solar Logos. They appeared. But they're not yet alive. They're not yet animated. They're just waiting to happen. So there's always a preparation for things that are waiting to happen. Like, for instance, why, when the baby is being formed, do all of the cells divide and arrange themselves in a certain way which eventually becomes the recognizable infant? Why does that happen? Something is guiding the process, right? What is guiding the process is a relatively archetypal form on the etheric planes, on our systemic etheric planes, which is guiding the formation of all this matter. In other words, the infant exists as a form on the archetypal planes, our systemic ethers, before you see the baby taking form. Well, this is the same thing, only it's in a larger context. The archetypal forms of all creation are existing as ideas in the mind of God, and they are formless forms on the cosmic Buddhic level. Yes, use that word then. Yes. They are like blueprints, or they are like energy patterns, which will gather together the matter in the lower worlds according to a particular design. So that's what's being formed here. And the varied forms appear. Not the forms that are tangible like this here, but the archetype appears. Like you might say, the chair doesn't appear, but chairness appears. This is what Plato called the forms. He called the forms. Only he was such a, idealist in a way. He was focusing on the subtle ideational level, and he talked about what is it that actually produces the chair is the idea of the chair. That's what appears. Ideas. Okay. All of those cosmic ethers, all of them are archetypal planes. DK said here the second plane is the archetypal plane, but really they're all archetypal planes. They all have these subtle forms which are to materialize. Okay, so each took its place and in the sphere ordained. A sphere, okay, the cosmic physical plane is a sphere. Each subplane of the cosmic physical plane is a sphere. Each subplane of a systemic plane is a sphere. Each subplane, of which there are now 343 on the cosmic physical plane, is a sphere. All planes are spheres, all rays are spheres. In a way, it's hard to find anything that exists that is not essentially a sphere. That is a deep question. I'd have to really look into what you mean, because there are many constituents in a molecule, and I'm assuming that each element and each atom is essentially a sphere. So that when you put them all together, what you get as a composite is a sphere as well. Even though a starfish looks like a starfish, essentially it's a sphere. So, okay. Now, they waited for the sacred flood to enter and to fill. What does that mean to us? They waited for the sacred flood to enter. These forms waited for the central sacred flood of what? Water? It could be. It could be. I am thinking simply of the flood of animating life. It could be, there could be cosmic astral, cosmic mental aspects to it. I'm kind of finding myself staying on the cosmic physical plane, looking for the vitalization. However, look at this statement. Water of life am I, poured forth for thirsty men. What is the water? What could the water of life be? Could it be an animating electrical principle? Yes, energy. Okay, yes, animating energy. In other words, he's going to say the forms are still, they're not alive, they're not moving. Something has to come in. So let's just call it, whether it's cosmic astral, whatever it is, let's call it a flood of energy. They're waiting for a flood of energy to come in. So let's call it that. And flood of energy. I know I should be writing in orange for you, shouldn't I? Because this is the orange group, isn't it? Yes, okay. You're the only group. This is the only group that is doing these stanzas. Okay. Okay. Okay, well, okay, that's good. A little continuity between yesterday and today is all good. Okay. Okay, so we are dealing with events in our own universe, and the mighty one is probably the Solar Logos. The phraseology of the chart suggests the three outpourings. The resolving of the sevenfold waves of matter suggests the action of Fohat, considered as an aspect of the Solar Logos, acting to create the atomic matter of our solar system. There is, I want to put this in the color just to make you happy. If I can find it, more colors. Okay. Oh, there's a nice one. Is that red? Yes. That orange. Let's call it orange. There is a precipitation occurring from wave form to particulate form. So they are resolving themselves. It sounds like an alchemical term. When you resolve something, it becomes more concrete. Could also become less concrete. However, the appearance of the varied forms suggests the aspect of the form-building aspect of divinity, the second aspect, which builds the forms which are the matter of the 6 subplanes of every solar plane. Now, when you're looking at this picture, the following picture, and let's try to get this into our minds, what are each one of these planes called? Here's a plane, here's a plane, here's a plane. What kind of planes are they? All these planes. They are subplanes of the cosmic physical plane, but what are the names attached to them in general? There's 2 names. There are two names. Sometimes DK calls them solar planes. So you have the 7 solar planes represented here. And sometimes he calls them, or they can be called, systemic planes. So every one of the subplanes of the cosmic physical plane are solar planes or systemic planes. You can use those terms interchangeably. Okay? All right, that's a clarification. I usually use the word systemic, but I see that he uses them quite often as solar because they are the planes of our solar system. On what planes does our solar system exist? Does our solar system exist on the cosmic astral plane? Cosmic mental plane? Technically, no. Our solar system is confined to the cosmic physical plane, even though the parts of the solar logos exist on higher planes. So analogously then, if you're looking for the solar system of man, what is it? What is the analogy in man to the solar system of the solar logos? It's obvious. It's obvious. Isn't it? It's your physical, etheric nature. That is your solar system. It's the most developed part, most articulated, differentiated part. This is your solar system. Your body and your bioelectric field is your solar system. Okay? And then, your cosmic astral plane is your astral body, your cosmic mental plane is your mental body, and so forth. So the solar system confines itself to the lower 7 cosmic subplanes. That's the place where it is. Okay. So now, if you're to locate man's spirit, would you say? Man's spirit, if we want to locate man's spirit, is the blue dot within the diamond from yesterday. Man's spirit is the volatile essence, which is the essential monad. Now, man's spirit is not the monad and the monadic vehicle. Usually when we say monad, we mean whatever the monad projects or becomes or develops in terms of its expressive form on the monadic plane. But you can leave that plane behind when that temple is shattered, and you will still be the spirit. So the spirit, I like to think of it in alchemical terms as the volatile essence, the flying essence within any ring pass knot on any plane whatsoever. So you've got a monadic vehicle. It's a ring pass knot, but that monadic vehicle breaks at the 7th initiation, I believe at the 7th initiation. And the volatile essence flies to the 7th plane. Now there are many wider and wider vehicles, but the spirit is precisely the central fire or essence within all of those vehicles. So when we say monad, we usually include the vehicle, but the essence, the real essence, is the true spirit, which is one in all of cosmos. That's how I see it. Okay, look. I probably showed you this before on page 168 of Esoteric Psychology 1. Here it is. The work of logoic Fohat. Fohat only differentiates matters on the atomic subplanes. The second outpouring causes molecular combinations, thus forming the 6 subplanes below the atomic on each plane. So monadic essence is of the atomic subplanes, and molecular essence, or excuse me, elemental essence is of the lower 6 molecular subplanes. And you say, well, this surely sounds like cosmic fire, and yet here it is in the psychology book. Esoteric Psychology 1. Remember, the Tibetan is written one big book, so they're all needed. Here is the definition. Elemental essence is seen to consist of aggregations of matter on one of the 6 non-atomic subplanes of the mental and the desire planes. Aggregations which do not themselves serve as forms for any entity to inhabit, but as the material out of which such forms may be built. So there are these tiny little forms in a way, but the form-building aspect uses the building blocks of elemental essence to create the forms which a being may inhabit. Monadic essence is the matter of the atomic or highest subplane of each plane. Elemental essence, the matter of the 6 subplanes which are non-atomic. It is molecular matter. That's it, defined very, very clearly. And that's what Fohat creates, the atomic essence or monadic essence. And the second outpouring creates elemental essence. Okay, so the planes are spheres, and we discussed that. What types of forms are being built? They are largely molecular, but perhaps archetypal forms are being created as well. And I want to add that. Perhaps, and I'll add it in orange, honoring this class's color. Okay, perhaps archetypal forms are also created during the second outpouring. Okay. And they must materialize in the dense physical body of the solar logos and planetary logos. Okay. Now, yes? Yes. This is the magical process. Yeah, that's what it is. That's right. It's cosmic white magic. That's what it is. We, just the way we might create a thought form and try to embody it and so forth, or just the way we are a created thought form of the soul. So this solar system is the created thought form of the solar logos in his 5th incarnation. So, and he's using words of power, to do this work. What is the sacred flood? The energies of the higher 2 aspects of divinity. I think, it could be, let's just say higher energy, but there is the monadic and the logoic plane. They are the 2 planes closest to the spirit, and they have to flood in to the Brahmic aspect. So in other words, the monadic, the monad is attuned to the cosmic astral plane. The logoic plane is attuned to the cosmic mental plane. And they are etheric representations of cosmic astral, cosmic mental, and you can go higher. And the vitality from those planes floods into the forms that are being created on the 5 lower planes and animates them with life. So we're looking for the animating energy. The animating energy is to be descending. And I'm just going to try to copy here something that will help me. Stay in orange, Okay. So the sacred flood, sacred flood is animating energy from the higher, to planes, and representing still higher sources of energy. Okay, the word uttered by the 3rd aspect of divinity, and we just studied that, is AUM. We were just in cosmic fire, and we discovered that AUM is the word uttered by the Fohat Brahma aspect of divinity. It's the form-building word, AUM. OM is the word of the soul, which is equivalent to AU, and O is the lower reflection of A. A is A, first ray. But when A sounds in a second ray solar system, it turns to O. When you use AU, it is equivalent to OM, which is what Sanat Kumara sounds. Very frequently, we're told, the Om at the center of the council chamber. It includes the combination of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd ray. The O is the 1st ray manifesting in a second ray system. and the M is putting the consonant seal upon the vowels, rendering it into form. The form of the soul. OM gives us the form of the soul. AUM takes the archetype and brings it right down into dense matter in the cosmic dense body of the solar logos. Well, you know, there's a lot of varied opinion about that. A lot of people say, could be, but somewhere I remember reading that they sound the same, Om and Om.
So when you say the sound, you have to have AUM in your head.
When you say the sound, should you have AUM? DK says that simply uttering the sound is less effective than having the idea of the meaning of it and listening for the inner reverberation. So Master Morya warns us, he says, don't just say sacred things without thought. He says, because then it becomes meaningless, but always keep your thought and the word together. So I believe that is correct. Stay in alignment, otherwise you just, well, you know how you could say, oh, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, the kingdom come. You know, like in church, mumbling in church. You know, people can have their mind 1,000 miles away, but their body knows how to say the Lord's Prayer. And he tells us the same about the great invocation. Say it with thought, fervently, with reverence, you know, with intensity. Otherwise, we can just say from the point of love in the mind, you know, we can do that. That's just mumbling sounds. So keep the mind and the will together with the word, I would say. Yeah. Oh, we're getting there. Okay, we're getting there. So the word uttered by the third aspect is AUM. And we're creating our solar system in the Brahmic level, on the Brahmic level. It tells me my microphone is loud. Well, okay, I hope it's not too bad. All right. Now, let's go on. The word uttered by the third aspect of divinity is AUM, and we read the following, the triple logoic word, AUM. Okay, and we just read that, and we went back and discussed it. The builders responded to the sacred sound. Well, now, the first work we're going to do is on plane the third, isn't it? Plane the third is the first Brahmic plane. It's the first plane of manifestation. It's the first material plane. In other words, the lower 5 planes are material. What about the rays? First ray, second ray, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, correct? First ray, second ray, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All of them, the rays of attribute are subcategories to the third ray of aspect. So materiality enters, manifestation enters with the lower 5. Brahma is a manifester, and the 5 is the number of manifestation, the Brahmic number of manifestation. Saturn contains all the lesser rays and all the lesser planets. You may remember this particular diagram. It's chart number 6. There, that's the one. I wonder how this... No, that's not it. Okay, here it is. Right. Take a look at Saturn. There's a 1, 2, 3 about this, isn't there? There's Uranus, there's Neptune, and where is Saturn? See, this is Saturn, and this is Saturn. This is the planet Saturn, but this is the greater or more Brahmic Saturn, containing all these other planetary schemes. So Saturn is all-inclusive of the lesser planets, and the third ray is all-inclusive of the lesser rays. We're in the realm of diversification, the realm of materialization, when we touch Saturn and the third ray. Saturn, of course, is the major third-ray planet. Now, you know, it's sometimes we're talking about esoteric Saturn and exoteric Saturn. You may remember that in Cosmic Fire he talks about there is an exoteric Saturn and an esoteric Saturn. He tells you there's one, so you know there's the other. Some people have said, well, the real esoteric Saturn is Sigma. But I believe that the true esoteric Saturn, I mean, Sigma is important and it's very karmic-like and it's related to Saturn and all the rest of it, but I believe this whole thing is the true esoteric Saturn. It's a threefold. Look at the number of circles that are here. It's almost like this is the 3 rings of Saturn. Here's ring number 1, ring number 2, and around the whole thing, ring number 3. There's a big mystery with the extent of Saturn. As a matter of fact, in some ways you could look at this as the Brahma of our solar system, this great circle of the larger Saturn. Okay, now I know we're somewhere. All right. The builders responded to the sacred sound, AUM. Who are the builders? And who is likely to respond? What plane have we reached with AUM? What plane have we reached? In other words, you know we're descending through the planes, right? We're going to create by descending through the planes, correct? So what plane have we reached so far? Atomic plane. Very good. Atomic. The atomic plane. Okay, we have reached that point. And remember, in one of the other ones we read, there was a 3-fold sound, a 4-fold sound, and then an implied 5-fold sound. The 3-fold sound from the 1st degree, we said that probably resonates with the atomic plane as it is preparing to create the causal vehicle. So who are these builders? What is their name? Page 35, Esoteric Astrology. What's the name of the builders in general that are found on the atomic plane? They're not called greater builders. That's on the 2nd plane. Well, master builder, that sounds nice. It's not what it's on the chart, but it sounds good. Solar angels come a little lower. We're up here on the atomic plane. The home of the last word is flowers. Do you remember? They're called the well, we'll get there. Here it is. The lesser builders conferring form the triple flowers. Hey, listen, will you do me a favor and memorize this chart? This is going to save me a lot of effort if you will just memorize this chart. I know that you would like to do that. Right? Why do I know that? Just intuition, you know? Something tells me that when you have a few spare hours, you want to walk along the side of the strand here and memorize this. Okay. All right. The triple flowers, the lesser builders. Now, you're going to start running into Raja Deva lords and their cohorts. On every solar plane is a major Raja Deva lord, who is the equivalent of the 7th initiation. And he has 7 subsidiary helpers, which are the lords of each one of his subplanes, and each one of them is assigned just millions and millions of stratified builders of all kinds. So that's the whole Devic kind of army that is supervised by these great beings and is involved in the building process. So, you know, when it says builders here, this is a very inclusive term. Mighty lives of the 7th degree and 6th degree are included, as well as many builders of lesser categories. Now, if you were looking for self-conscious devas, what planes would you look on? What do you think? Would you look on the astral plane? Of course, there are some, naturally. Lord Varuna and his 6. Yeah, I would tend to think there are more of them found on the higher planes, on the cosmic ethers. Yeah, Buddhic, Atmic, Monadic, etc. I would look there for the really self-conscious ones. At the same time, the elemental essence of those levels are still quite unconscious and become more conscious as they descend. So, in other words, the evolution of elemental essence and of monadic essence requires a descent of that matter lower and lower in order to become more conscious, and then a reascent in form. It's kind of mysterious, but the higher planes, to me, are the home of the most aware devas and the elements that are least aware, in a way. I can't prove that, but that's been the impression that I've gathered in this reading. So the builders respond to the sacred sound. So we're talking about great devic agencies. The word builders is capitalized. We're talking about great, intelligent, individualized agencies, and not the unself-conscious lesser builders. Okay, any of the sounds emanating from the higher planes can be a sacred sound. So the A, the AU, the AUM, the OM, they're all sacred sounds. Okay, the OM must be included, though assigning it to a particular plane offers various possibilities. The OM can be assigned to the higher mental plane. The OM is the sound of solar fire, and solar fire expresses through Agni on the monadic, the atmic, and the Buddhic planes, planes 2, 3, and 4. And we read about that just the other day. OM is also sounded in the council chamber of Sanat Kumara on the very highest level. So whereas we put A on the first plane, U, AU, etc., Om goes all over the place. Om can be assigned on various different levels. In musical collaboration, they attended to the work. What does that suggest to us? In musical collaboration, these builders attended to the work. What does it suggest? In musical collaboration, they attended to the work. Have you ever seen people sing together and kind of, instead of speaking to each other, they kind of improvise together and sing in harmony with each other spontaneously? Have you seen that or heard that? That's what's going on here. On these high planes, the devas know the laws of harmony, and their work is like a work song. Even human beings have work songs, don't they? You know, it makes the time pass faster. You have a job to do. So the whole group sings a song together and the job goes easier. Now, they used to do this quite a bit out on the ocean. They called it sea chanties. Have you ever heard any of these old sea chanties? You know, there's this old, there's a song called Haul Away Joe. Have you ever heard that? Way, haul away, we'll haul away Joe. You know, and you can just imagine pum, 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 how they would pull as they sing. So the rhythm and the harmony accomplished together make the work go according to the archetype. Now, of course, the angels are always singing. This is what we hear. That's one of the glorious things. The birds are representing the angels, and bird song, of course, is one of the most noteworthy types of song in our world. And on a higher turn of the spiral, the angels are circling the throne of God, singing glory to God in the highest. You know, it must be a magnificent thing to hear. So music is building, my final point is that music is building the solar system. In other words, it's not just a form of entertainment. I like that music. Music is a way of working together. Gosh, I'm feeling we ought to do a ritual. Aren't you? Aren't you? But the sad part is Gisela's going away, and I always feel so dispirited when he leaves that I just can't work myself up to do a ritual. But if Gisela were to stay, then it would be possible. So how many... Yeah. Well, anyway, they work in musical collaboration. I find that to be a magnificent idea. They all have their own pitch. Every plane has its own note, and subnotes, and they sound, and they rhythmically alternate with each other. It must be an incredible thing to witness their musical building collaboration, filled with color, filled with sound, and all rhythmically perfect. Now, of course, we human beings, we don't know how to do that yet. We scream at each other, we shout at each other, we have friction. If we could only sing at our meetings in harmony, it would be incredible. Just imagine that for just a second. You know that, was it? You missed the sing. Yes, missed the singing. I missed it too, but it will happen. Probably, because we can't even register those sounds even as words. But the well-developed inner human ear then could. But just imagine that, you know, being a musician of a kind, I used to have friends who were also musicians. So instead of talking to each other, we used to sing to each other in our conversation. Now, in opera, that's called recitative. In other words, you don't just say, come here, Leporello, okay, I'll come here. No, you sing it. And the whole drama moves through song. Now, just imagine that we were so harmonically attuned that whatever we thought we could sing appropriately and the other person would respond or sing with us in harmony. It would be an incredible collaboration. That kind of thing does lie ahead. Remember, we're all going to learn how to sing someday. Because that's right. Yes, I suppose that the song sung in a cold shower is different from that sung in a warm shower. Yes, well, we're certainly getting our dose of Saturn here, aren't we? As they say, the cold shower of reality. It's happening, isn't it? Okay, we're almost, well, that's it. We're almost there. In musical collaboration, they attended to the work. I know we have to take our break. Okay, as I said, Sanat Kumara is composing a symphony. The Solar Logos is composing a solar sonata. Let's see if I can find that. It's kind of a beautiful idea. All the musicians are working. There's only 2 sonatas in all of DK. And here it is, the entire 7 section. Oh, this is gorgeous. In due time, oh, this is wonderful. Anyway, he basically tells you how to tune yourself up. You know, you tune yourself up by harmonizing the basic note of matter, the major third of the aligned personality, the dominant fifth of the ego, followed by the full chord of the monad or spirit. Yum, bum, bum, bum. The basic note, the major third, the fifth, and the octave. Bum, bum. It is the dominant we seek at adeptship. It's a Leo note. And earlier, the perfected third of the personality. During our various incarnations, we strike and ring the changes on all the intervening notes. And sometimes our lives are major and sometimes minor. Isn't that interesting? Major and minor? You have a bright life and a dark life. You know, Greensleeves is a sad song, right? You know that? You know that song, Greensleeves? It goes, alas, my love, you do me wrong, right? Alas, that's a minor. But if we sang, alas, my love, it wouldn't be the same, would it? Because it's too bright. Alas, my love, you're not doing anybody wrong. You're happy. Alas, my love, you're not happy. That's the minor. That's the minor mode. Okay, so sometimes our lives are major. Sometimes they are minor. Whoops. All right. Where am I? Okay. Who am I? Okay. But always they tend to flexibility and greater beauty. In due time, each note fits into its chord. All your lives fit into a chord. The chord of the spirit. Each chord forms part of a phrase that others have made. Several chords, part of a phrase. What's a phrase? Ladies, what's a phrase? What's a phrase? What's a musical phrase? Musical phrase? Anyone? Yes, be attentive. Okay. The phrase or group to which the chord belongs. And the phrase goes to the completion of 1/7 of the whole. The entire 7 sections then complete the sonata of this solar system, a part of the threefold masterpiece of the Logos, or God, the master musician. And you are involved just when you sound your note, when you be who you are, when you try to be who you are, and when you are authentic to your own nature, sounding your own note through various lives. It goes to the creation of a chord, and all these chords fit together into a phrase, into a certain section, which is part of the threefold masterpiece of the Solar Logos as the master musician. It sounds like we ought to study music. You know what I'm saying? In the old days, you couldn't even get into Pythagoras' school unless you knew music and mathematics. So the mystery schools are coming again, and we have to learn to do that. All right. Now, I think, having made my point, we can take a little break. See you soon. We'll go on. Or would you like to stay for another 2 hours without a break? No, no. Okay, okay. No, I just wanted to get you moving. That's it, you know. Okay. All right, electronic attendees, awake or asleep, wherever you may be. I guess we're back on track. I hope so. We'll have a few minutes of a little break, and then we will continue with number 2. Stanza number 2, which seems to be the creative process through sound of our solar system, possibly also applied to still higher systems, but if we can grasp it for the solar system, then we can grasp it for other things. Okay, so I'll just put us in suspended animation here for a minute. And we do understand why. Yes, it's really out there, or really in there. Anyway, in musical collaboration, they worked, which is nice and very efficient. And it's all, you know, that's the Pythagorean perspective, that we're, all of us, dealing with a musical composition at this time. All right. So they know it's one of the great building agencies music is. Musical collaboration is very lawful. There are laws of music and laws of harmony. And these greater building agencies really have to observe that. Of course, we're in such a cacophonic world. Cacophony all around. We're in a state of disharmony all the time, and we don't know these higher laws of building. But we will, and they will be musical. And we should remember here too that the fourth plane, which is our objective, is so very important in relation to music and harmony. The fourth plane, the Buddhic plane, is called the plane of harmony, and that's actually where we, the fourth creative hierarchy, at present representing the fourth kingdom, or expressing through the fourth kingdom, that's our destination. In other words, if you turn to that chart that I've had you look at so many times today, which is tabulation number 2, page 35, you know which one I mean, that this is our objective. The human monads are, as lords of sacrifice and initiates and so forth, are meant to express themselves on the plane of harmony. We are actually one day to become a harmonious kingdom, even though it seems very remote from our present possibilities. That's what it's and we're the fourth kingdom, and we are the we're not only the fourth kingdom, we are the fourth creative hierarchy. There's a difference between a kingdom and a hierarchy, right? Especially when it comes to the human area, because the fourth creative hierarchy expresses itself through all the kingdoms, the lower ones, even the mineral, vegetable, and animal. That's really interesting. That's still the fourth creative hierarchy at work through those kingdoms. but especially through the fourth kingdom and the fifth kingdom, which is the spiritual kingdom of souls, and even through the sixth kingdom of planetary lives, it's still the fourth creative hierarchy. So a kingdom is a very inclusive source. And then there are different instruments through which that kingdom expresses, or through which that hierarchy expresses. And those are the kingdoms. All right. Now let's go on. They built in many spheres beginning with the third. Well, that's what we've been saying, haven't we? They built, the builders responded to the sacred sound in musical collaboration. They attended to the work, harmonious, lawful, rhythmic, sentient, artistic collaboration. They attended to the work. They built in many spheres. Remember, they built on all these subplanes and sub-subplanes and so forth. They built archetypal forms. They built in many spheres beginning with the third. Now, when he's saying the word sphere here, he means a solar plane, initially. The third solar plane is the atmic plane. Upon this plane their work commenced. They built the sheath of Atma and strung it to its primary. We have to discuss the meaning of that, because there's some different ways to think about that. Okay, the greater builders per se of the second subplane, they are not so much the builders. They're rather more, what would you say? They conceive it. They have the archetype in their minds, but the actual action factor is the third ray. From the fifth plane on down, you have the ray of activity at work. So the plans are taken from the second ray conception and actively put together by the Brahmic architects and builders, starting with the triple flowers and the lesser builders. So the greater builders are not building, they are in relation to the second plane. Although the term greater builders is one of those generic terms, you could apply it in many different ways, but DK is specific in putting it on the second plane. The greater builders, page 35, right? Okay. So the atmic plane is the third sphere. Upon this plane their work commenced. So do we all understand why it is that it is fitting that this work of manifestation begins on the atmic plane? We do understand that, right? The atmic plane is the third plane, and the atmic plane is the first plane. Why am I justified in saying that? You know, yeah. Well, the cosmic mantle is way up there, you know, so let's just say, let's take a look at the map here for a second. Yes, it is the first aspect of Brahma. So if you look at the cosmic mental, here's just a little, we seem to be stuck on the cosmic monadic. All right, here's the cosmic mental here. But the atmic plane is way down here. But there's a definite connection between this fifth cosmic mental plane and the atmic plane because it's the fifth from below. See, if you can find the same numbers characterizing two things, those two things will be connected by the principle of numerical resonance. So even though Atma is 5 from below and the cosmic mental plane is 5 from above, the fives will connect them, and there will be a method of influence. The third creative hierarchy on the atmic plane is very intelligent. As a matter of fact, the principle of intelligence is keen there. When you think about the atmic plane, you get the number 1 because it's the first of the Brahmic planes, but you get the number 3 because it's the third of the Vishnu planes. So you think about the rays of Saturn, there's a lot of third ray, and there's also a considerable first ray. There may be other rays as well. You know, the seventh ray, I wouldn't be surprised, in its more rigid forms can be found, and Saturn is also the ruler in a way of concrete mind and the throat center, which produces the concrete forms for concrete mind. So Saturn has a lot of 1, 3, 5, 7 connected with it. We are not told the rays of all the planets. We're like given one ray. But, just suppose that someone tried to characterize you as having only one ray. It wouldn't be the complete picture, would it? Because all the other vehicles would not be mentioned, would they? All right. All right, so anyway, upon this plane their work commenced. So we're talking about working in the Brahmic area of the Solar Logos, manifesting a great idea that the Solar Logos has had, the 5 lower planes. So if the greater builders are involved, they are building in relation to the plane immediately lower than the plane on which they are focused. Okay. Now, what does this mean? They built the sheath of Atma and strung it to its primary. It may not be exactly obvious. They built the sheath of Atma. Well, who's building? These builders on the Atmic plane, the Rajadeva lords, the lords of the subplanes, and all of their agents are building, mostly perhaps consciously, although the elemental matter on those planes is not yet conscious. They built the sheath of Atma. Now, is there a difference between building a sheath and coordinating a sheath? Because this is actually a significant question. I'm going to say that in our is there a difference between building a sheath and coordinating a sheath? Is there a difference? When yes. Well, okay. I kind of see it in the reverse manner. When I say building, I mean it's just something's there. In other words, they're giving you the basic outlines of the thing. When you make sure that it's all integrated and coordinated, you take what's there and you make sure that it's functioning, I guess. Now, the thing that is interesting to me here he's talking about building the Atmic sheath, and this is at the very beginning of the solar systemic work. He might as well say, and will soon say, I think, that you're going to build the Buddhic vehicle as well. But when is the Buddhic vehicle coordinated? In other words, yeah, remember what he says, Neptune will be powerful in your chart when the Buddhic vehicle is coordinated. So when in our history is the Buddhic vehicle coordinated? Okay, well, that may be a general statement, and you might be correct about that. For the individual, what about the individual? Before the 4th initiation. Yes. He's speaking from experience. Okay, you have to pass the 3rd degree in most of the references here before the Buddhic vehicle begins to be coordinated. Now think about that. It's got to be built, so to speak. It's got to be there before it's coordinated. I think that's what you said, maybe. What about the Atmic vehicle? It's got to be there before it's coordinated. So the coordination of the Atmic vehicle comes even later than the coordination of the Buddhic vehicle, correct? So it's always interesting to me to see that around the permanent atoms, something is being created which only much, much later will become truly functional. In other words, you might have this Atmic vehicle, you might have a Buddhic vehicle and so forth, but it's not really useful in terms of the jiva making his pilgrimage. That comes much, much later. Now, usually when you're stringing something to its primary, you're looking for a prototype, aren't you? You string something to its primary. What is usually strung to the monad? Remember the second outpouring. What does the monad do? The monad does something. He goes picking permanent atoms, right? goes out in the field of permanent atoms and picks one. And then it gets strung to the monad, right? The monad attaches itself as the primary to the atomic permanent atom, the Buddhic permanent atom, the monastic permanent atom, and maybe the lower ones too at a certain point. So usually it's the permanent atoms that are strung to the primary. Isn't that so? So now what does it mean that the sheath is strung to its primary? And you see, and here's the question. Is the primary the monad, or is the primary the particular permanent atom, because it is the source and origin of the vehicle? So what is the primary in this instance? Is it the monad, or is it the permanent atom of the sheath that is being built? So that's a question. Because in a way, the permanent atom is primary to any of the development of a sheath. Anyway, it sounds like the cart is being put before the horse, because generally the permanent atom is what determines the building of the sheath. So is there a way to string a vehicle to the monad, or to string a vehicle to the permanent atom, which is its source? One or other is happening here. Either the vehicle is being strung to the monad or to the permanent atom, which is usually considered its source. In other words, do you have a mental vehicle immediately when you come into incarnation? Well, here's the thing. What happened to your astral body after you died? Last time. Okay. Then where is it? You don't have it. You don't have an astral body. It's gone. What happens after you go to heaven, or wherever you go? And what happens to the mental body? Usually. It's dissipated, right? What's left? Only the mental unit, or only the physical permanent, astral permanent atom? Said, okay, so, but here you are again, and you've got a mental body and an astral body. What happened? I thought it was just dissipated. Something happened, right? It was regathered by the power of your permanent atom or mental unit. So the substance was reappropriated and reimpressed with all of the vibrational potential that you left that last life having. So the new matter was brought in, attracted in, magnetized, and according to what you had developed before, your mental body was repatterned. In other words, you don't think you're coming in with a mental body that's entirely new, do you? Don't you think you have mental tendencies that come from a previous life? You know, it's not just like tabula rasa, is it? You know, like I'm a blank, and whatever my environment has made my mind be, then that's what it is. No. You're carrying all of those mental tendencies from the past, aren't you? What are they called in occultism? Skandhas? Tendencies? So the body is dissipated because it is secondary, but the permanent atom is primary and reimpresses the regathered, remagnetized material with the patterns that are necessary. Now, you know, I think that every permanent atom or mental unit, well, it's tough, but every permanent atom has 7-ray potentials within it. In other words, where does your ray come from? How is it that you have a 5th-ray mind or a 4th-ray mind or whatever kind of mind? It's in the permanent atom, isn't it? So somehow there's a vibratory power within the permanent atom which impresses the material gathered with a certain frequency. Probably you have all the rays in every vehicle.
So when you're after the incarnation, your permanent atom is still in you? Yeah?
Absolutely. It's only after the 4th initiation that it's not. And even then, the harvest is saved. In other words, even after the permanent atoms burn up, they burn up your vehicles and they help burn up the causal body, whatever has been in them in terms of patterning and quality is lifted up into the higher permanent atoms. So nothing is lost. But the permanent, what I'm saying is the permanent atom is primary. So when he says primary here, this is the question. Does primary mean the monad, or does it mean the permanent atom for each particular vehicle? You see why I'm saying that? Now, the permanent atom, if you let's say strung the vehicle to the permanent atom, it would automatically belong to the monad, because the monad is in direct touch with each permanent atom. It's so interesting about the monad that the permanent atoms are strung to the monad, all of them. But the monad is also the cause of every chakra in every vehicle. It's like, where do the chakras come from? They are monadic power, rotary monadic power descending into one vehicle after another. If you finally trace the whirls in the matter of the vehicle, which we call chakras, back to the root, you're going to find the monad. Monadic fire makes, in its third aspect, makes the chakras. So the monad has really got a lot of control. It's anchored to every permanent atom, and it's anchored, it's causing every chakra whirlpool in all of your vehicles. Sometimes we say, oh, well, that's the soul. Yeah, but it's the monad through the soul. That's how it happens. So somehow, you know, as we go along, farther and farther, things get simpler. You know, in the beginning, everything is simple because you don't know anything. In the middle, everything is complex. And then later, everything is simple again, while not losing the understanding of complexity. You know, sometimes the Tibetan says, I can't explain this to you, it's too intricate. You've heard him say that many times. This mathematics is beyond you, I can't talk about it, blah, blah, blah. He appreciates all the complexity, but he also sees the essence of things. That's where we're going right now. The synthesis of complexity and simplicity, with simplicity prevailing. Okay, so for what or whom does this sheath exist? You know, I was still trying to work out, are we talking about an atmic sheath of a solar logos, or are we talking about atma for the human being? Usually these have to relate somehow to the human being. The word primary suggests monad, etc., because it is first. But it can also suggest a permanent atom as the primary of the sheath. Okay. Here, this is interesting from Esoteric Psychology 1. It was at the time of the second outpouring that each of the divine centers of consciousness put forth a thread of being into an atom of the highest subplanes of the atmic Buddhika monastic planes, atoms destined to be the nuclei of the future bodies, each on its respective plane, the three forming the upper triad so often referred to. So that's when the permanent atoms were found. We reviewed that, but it seems only the atmic Buddhika monastic atoms were taken. So when were the astral and physical permanent atoms taken? Without a physical permanent atom, you can't have a mineral kingdom, can you? So and likewise for the vegetable kingdom and the beginning of sentiency in the vegetable kingdom, you need the astral permanent atom, at least in a sort of a primitive stage. But the monad did not take the mental unit. That's not how that happened. That was different. The mental unit got worked up from below, according to DK, as instinct approximated mentality. So it's a self-cooked center coming from the evolving monad rising. The permanent the mental unit arises as an evoked center because of the progress of the life coming up through the mineral, animal, mineral, vegetable, and finally animal kingdom in which the mental unit begins to appear. It wasn't like the monad reached forth and selected something and made it happen. That's not how that happened. Okay. Okay, so it would seem that in this section, we are speaking of the act by which the sheath of Atma is strung to its primary, whichever of the two options we choose, whether it is the permanent atom or the monad, or to the monad through the permanent atom. We cannot be speaking of the monad of the solar logos, which occurs on the cosmic monadic plane, which is far above the cosmic physical plane, which is presently under discussion. So why am I saying that? I'm trying to limit our discussion. There are many things we could be talking about, but I'm trying to get us right down here to the practical level of the cosmic physical plane, whereon all of our spiritual evolution is occurring. The highest we can hope for in our whole spiritual development is occurring on the cosmic physical plane. Until we are initiates of the 9th degree or beyond, well, maybe the 7th, we won't be concerned about the cosmic astral plane the way the Christ is now. Our spiritual development is occurring right here on the 7 solar planes. Does that make sense? Does any of this make sense? Okay. Okay, hopefully some of this makes sense, a little bit. Okay, Om, said the Mighty One. The solar logos keeps talking. He keeps talking with respect to each plane. I shouldn't say talking, I should say intoning. He knows what's effective. You know, all of these, he's been through the whole musical education, and he knows how to sustain a tone. So, as he continues his work of building in the Brahmic worlds, let the work proceed. Let now the work proceed. I thought this word now is very interesting. There is a state of consciousness known as the eternal now. Have we heard of that? Of course, understanding is another matter. The eternal now begins to have its impact upon the consciousness of man when? When does the eternal now come into focus as a possible perception? Tomorrow. When I realized everyone was one and lived that. That's when it started coming in. So it has to do with oneness. It has to do something with oneness, something with unity, something, you know, with non-separativeness and all of that. So, okay, so that's how that worked in your individual case. And if we want to point to what is the source of those kinds of perceptions, then what I would like to say is that it is the Buddhic energy as it begins to make itself felt in the process of initiation, which brings us an increasing sense of the eternal now. In other words, there's just something about that Buddhic plane and time. The perception of time really changes on the Buddhic plane. It's called the mountain whereon form dies, and form and time agree. We may remember from one of the formulas where it said, time is, being descends to manifest, creation is, time then and form agree. Being and time do not agree. So that's one of those philosophical statements. And there is a condition of time on the Buddhic plane which is very different from in the lower 3 worlds. So, how is time perceived? I'll let you know. There's some faculty of mind which is synthetic, which can perceive the past, present, and future simultaneously because we've entered the Uranian planes. And we begin to overcome the tyranny of sequence on the Buddhic plane because things are seen in essence. In other words, I go back to what Ella was saying here. If we can live in the presence, which suggests present, doesn't it? If we can live in the presence, we can somehow put the past and the future into the only moment that is in the presence of the presence. So I think there's a lot of mysteries having to do with time that are resolved when the Buddhic consciousness becomes stronger and stronger, as it does around the fourth initiation, which is why I said I'll let you know, Saturn, in a way, it said it doesn't follow man on to the cardinal cross, because the cardinal cross experience is one of synthesis of space and synthesis of time. Now, it's much easier for me to synthesize space than it is time. I mean, I think I have certain conceptions and feelings and, I don't know, what can I say, registrations, realizations about the synthesis of space. But the synthesis of time I find always more difficult, and I'm working on it. Are categories. Well, he said they are categories of consciousness. Categories of consciousness, yes. And they are limitations in that respect. But the intuition brings us into the timeless now. I always go back to that old mantra, there is a peace that passeth understanding. It abides in the hearts of those who live in the eternal. There is a power that maketh all things new. It lives and moves in those who know the self as one. So I say, those two factors, living in the eternal and seeing the self as one, signify Buddhic realization. It's a unitive realization. It's a timeless realization, at least in the conventional sense. Past and present and future are somehow collapsed in upon each other. It's like the moving of space to a point. Yesterday we talked about how can there be a seventh solar system when there's only 6? And the whole idea behind that is that somehow all 6 solar systems come into the present moment as a 7th in the eternal now. So these, those kinds of words demand some kind of mountaintop vision where we, being on the pinnacle, can bring the entire pyramid into one point. At that point, space is all collapsed into a point, and duration is collapsed into the now. And those are the things that we have to prove to ourselves by an internal experiential process. And it's not like it's just going to happen one day in the shower it happened. I don't think so. We have to work towards it. And this would be called, I remember Manly Palmer Hall. He wrote a lot of excellent books. He was a great scholar. But something stuck with me, 50 years ago when I was reading his stuff. And the phrase was the disciplines of realization. And I thought to myself, okay, in other words, if there's going to be realization, there must be discipline. Where does realization occur? It's a type of power or city or perception. Where do we find realization? It's on the way. It's on the way. It's on the way. But I guess what I'm trying to be even more specific, and I'm trying to say on what level of the cosmic physical plane does realization occur? Okay, well, all we have to do here, DK on page 188 and 189 of Cosmic Fire, he gave us basically those powers and where they are located. And interestingly enough, realization is on the third or fifth subplane of the atmic plane. It's an atmic issue. We're talking about that right here. So it requires Saturnian discipline in sequence to reach that point of realization where time and space are collapsing into a point which can go through the needle's eye. See, you can't drag your whole aura through the needle's eye. It just doesn't, you can't drag space through the needle's eye, and you can't drag linear time through the needle's eye. We have to overcome the sense of extension in time and space. So anyway, the Mighty One says, let now the work proceed. And the reason that I emphasize the word now is because I think we're talking about the Buddhic plane, whereon form and time die. Let now the work proceed, the Mighty One says. So this is a work with creation. It could be applied to the planetary logos yet, but the level of interpretation has yet to be determined, but probably the solar logos. Okay. Let the builders of the air continue with the plan. We learn a couple of things in that sentence. What do you learn? Let the builders of the air continue with the plan. Who are the builders of the air? Air? The Buddhic plane. And who is the Lord of the Buddhic plane? In a way, yes, for humanity, but there is a Rajadeva Lord. Rajadeva Lord, who is the ruler of the Buddhic plane. He's sometimes called the Thunder God. We mentioned him. He was with us a couple of days ago. Let's do it eliminatively. He's not Kashiti. He's not Varuna. He's not Agni. One left. A little louder. If we're going to make a mistake, let's make it big. How about Indra? Indra? Indra. One of the great gods, Lord of the Buddhic plane. Thunder God. Okay. He's really significant in Hindu mythology. So let the builders of the air, the Rajadeva Lord Indra and his cohorts and servants, continue with the plan. Now, what did we just learn? Is this the first time the word plan has appeared, isn't it? What's going on here? Continue with the plan. Some sequential unfoldment of a preconceived attention is being manifested in time and space in a sequential manner. A plan. Right? This is part of the divine plan, isn't it? We're building according to the plan. And now the builders of air are at work. Okay. It's the plane of harmony. Okay. And we are speaking of builders who inhabit or dwell upon or live upon that plane, which is our objective. That's where we're trying to go. When we human monads have achieved the fourth initiation and can focus on that level, that is, we have completed, in a way, the required human process of evolution. That's human completeness on the number 4. It's true we go on as members of the 5th grade of hierarchy, 4th grade of hierarchy. We go on as masters of the wisdom who are still human beings, but that's the last stop. Beyond the master of the wisdom, there are no more human beings. Does that make sense? What are there? They are no longer men, as are the masters. but having passed beyond that stage, have linked themselves to the great council in the highest secret place. They're not men. If it goes beyond masters, they're not men. So technically, a Chohan is not a man. They are no longer men as are the masters. What is that? Rule number 7. Let the group life emit the word of invocation and thus evoke response within those distant ashrams where move the Chohans of the race of men. They are no longer men as are the masters, but having passed beyond that stage, have linked themselves to the great council in the highest secret place. So mastership is, fivefold mastership, the fivefold man, the fully fulfilled Leo, number 5, that's the last man you get. Okay, so whose plan is this? Let's call it the plan of the Solar Logos, and the plan of the Solar Logos as it's working through our planetary logos. That's what we're dealing with here. Pretty soon there's going to be rocks and things. We know there are no rocks on the sun, are there? Third rock from the sun. Okay, actually, the name of that sitcom is not correct. If they just knew about Vulcan, we'd have to call it fourth rock from the sun, wouldn't we? Have you seen that on television? It's all about these aliens who come in and they land on the third rock from the sun, which is apparently the Earth. And then they have many human experiences, but they all look at them as aliens would. It's kind of funny. Anyway, occasionally I pass by a television set which I haven't turned on, and I see things that other people are watching. Oh, tell me another one. Yeah, well, it's only in a state of profound depression that I allow myself to stare at the television. And, it's amazing what you see. I mean, inadvertently, of course, while not concentrating. That's where the human consciousness is. There's a lot of murder lately on television. I don't know if you've noticed that. And a lot of dead bodies. It seems like one of the favorite scenes of the TV is the morgue these days. And someone's always lying there like this, having been done in various ways. And then it's up to these brilliant Ray 5, mostly women, to figure out what has happened. But it's actually quite good, though, because it shows, humanity developing the fifth ray and actually getting to the causes of things, and meanwhile setting the record straight and catching the bad guy. I like to watch that thing called Criminal Minds. It reminds me of many of my students. Present company accepted, of course. But, it's kind of interesting. But usually you catch the bad guy by the end, It's very important to catch the bad guy. All Aries people, I think, like to catch the bad guy. But it's kind of interesting to see where the mass mind is at the moment, And it's so symptomatic. All this stuff about the X factor and idol this and idol that, it's all about the Leo personality expressing its gifts. And then, of course, competition and being judged as the best and shining. And, of course, I saw a little girl sing. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, you'll see more about that. She's just like an angel. It's not this usual emotional expression where, most of the idol people are just really wringing their emotional body for all they've got. But I saw something that just must have come out of heaven. I'll tell you a little more about it. I don't want to ruin certain plans which are in progress, but there is a girl who's a very young girl, maybe 11 years old, and she has a heavenly voice, and it just comes from another plane. Every once in a while you find one of these really beautiful examples, but the idea is that the causal body is being expressed. That's what the X factor is all about. In other words, something within our nature, starting with the emotions usually, or even gymnasts and acrobats, turning all around. You don't see anybody doing a quiz thing, so it's all usually physical or emotional, but it has to do with expressing our inner content of the causal body in some way. That's where humanity is. We're going through a Leo phase, the Tibetan tells us, yes. No, it's not that. It's not that. But I bet, there are a few. No. But I'm interested to find out. Anyway, every once in a while you just get some. Assagioli said, "Well, look, Mozart was a little bit adolescent in his personality, but he had a pipeline to the divine mind. So whatever his personality was, coming through him was this great Buddhic music, and it didn't make any difference who he was as a person per se. So every once in a while you find a few of these people who are not just channeling their own emotional body, so to speak, but they are channeling something really beautiful on the higher planes, and it's coming through them in an impersonal way. If you will come to next year's 26th University of the Seven Rays Institute conference, you will see what I mean. Now, all you have to do is come to the United States. It's getting cheaper and cheaper all the time. And come to the conference in warm, sunny, swimming pool bedecked Arizona at a time when you're probably shivering in cold rain from early spring, which comes around here when? June? I don't know. Anyway, come to the United States for the 26th conference. I have to tell everybody it might be the last one. Of course, I said that last year. I think I keep on saying that now, Well, every conference might be the last one. This is my new line. It encourages people to come. This is your life, yes. But this is a scientific conference. This is, it's called The Coming of the Solar Angels, and living the science of the soul. So I would think that you would want to be there. Just start saving your kroner and your pounds, your quid. No. No. Listen, you know how it is with human beings. There's always more pounds where that came from. No trouble accumulating pounds. Okay. All right, that was just a little plug for the conference, right? Would like to see you there. I think you'd enjoy yourself. And it's a lovely place. It's a lot of fun to be there. We'll even get Anne to come again. Okay. So anyway, the creation is that of the solar logos, but the steps would probably apply to the planetary logos. And remember, the solar logos is working through the planetary logos. And since we're on the Earth, we're particularly interested in our planetary logos. And we will get to him. The Deva Lord and builders upon the plane of air worked with the forms within that sphere, which is reckoned mainly theirs, the Buddhic plane. So there is a Rajadeva Lord, and then there are secondary Deva Lords and other builders, and they are, how do they work? It says they're hands, but of course it doesn't mean hands at all. They are somehow refining these forms which are not yet animated. So we're still in the archetypal world. The Rajadeva Lord of the Buddhic plane, which forms are they in that particular sphere? It would seem that we should be speaking only of atomic and molecular Buddhic matter, but this still remains a possibility. But it still remains a possibility that archetypal forms are being prepared for manifestation in the three lower worlds. I want to think of that. 12 labors, that doesn't work. Oop. Oh, good. All right. Now, it's interesting, the word mainly. They work within the sphere which is reckoned mainly theirs. What does that say to you? These air devas are working in the Buddhic plane, and it is mainly theirs. What does that mean? It's a funny word to include, isn't it? And I suggest other influences are present. No sphere belongs only to the Rajadeva Lord who presides over it, but in a way, every lesser thing belongs to a greater thing. In a way, we belong to the solar angel. The solar angel belongs to the planetary logos, and so forth. So the higher owner, it's like a pyramid scheme. It's like when you go out to sell some kind of product, You have your, distributor behind you, and they have their distributor behind them. So there's a higher level of ownership on a pyramid here. So let's just say the Buddhic plane does not only belong to the Rajadeva lords. Still, the main activity upon the Buddhic plane or plane of air belongs to Indra, the Rajadeva lord of the Buddhic plane, and his subplane's subordinates. They wrought for union, each in his group assigned. I think we should, they're very organized, the Devas. If you look at the karmic department in which many Devas are working, it was super organized. So the seventh ray is very prominent. But what does it mean they wrought for union? Think about music now. They wrought for union, these builders. They're on the plane of what? Buddhic plane, plane of harmony, plane of unity, isn't it? Wouldn't you say that a lot of these people that are getting into oneness are really having a Buddhic touch in their consciousness? The unity movement, say. Wouldn't you say that's kind of the higher levels of the astral plane inspired by a Buddhic touch? So what does it mean to wrought? I mean, they wrought for you. The word wrought means working in form, doesn't it? Yes. Did you say the forms? Okay, I just lost the last word. I'm sorry. Form. Yeah, well, to wrought or to rend means to create through power. Yeah, the word work could be substituted here. So they were working for unity, is what it really means. They wrought for union is an old English way of saying they worked for unity. They are, yeah, and the interesting thing about the Buddhic plane is when you reach that plane of pure reason, the forms that are found there, they all fit together in unity. And that's what DK says that the faculty of inclusive reason reveals when we finally have it. The right, truthful unity of all things in the energy of love, which is really pure reason. Now, that's if I were going to give a test someday in an esoteric school, I would ask people to write an essay on why love and pure reason are equivalent. Wouldn't that be fun? Take out your papers. Don't look at the other person's desk. Okay, we'll have a pop quiz, right? All right, so they wrought for union because once we start entering the dense physical body of the solar logos, planetary logos, things are pretty fragmented. They are not in union. They are not in unity. They are not in harmony. Here, we are on the middle plane, the plane of harmony, and the Devas are working for the harmonization of energies, patterns, and forms. Okay. All right, they wrought for union, which is understandable, etc., etc. The higher Agni-Suryans should be included among the workers on the Buddhic plane. Do Agni-Suryans belong only to the astral plane? In other words, we've studied Agni-Chaitans, we've studied Agni-Suryans, we've studied Agni-Shvatas. So these are three orders of Deva lives. When you hear the word Agni-Suryans, where do you go looking? What does that word suggest to you, Agni-Suryans? Nothing? Any more? Okay. Nothing. Okay, Agni-Suryans, Buddha, Buddhic, Buddhi, one. Okay. Oh, these elementals and devas are called the Agni-Suryans, and in their totality are the fiery essences of Buddhi. Hence, their lowest manifestation is on the sixth plane, the astral. You've heard about all the things the Agni-Suryans do, right? There, you have religious aspiration, you have a sex impulse, you have some sort of emotional exchange. It's always the Agni-Suryans, but that's the lowest expression of the Agni-Suryans because their higher expression is on the Buddhic plane. So when you're involved in unification and the feeling of oneness and, everything looks harmonious, that's the Agni Suryans also, isn't it? Isn't that interesting? They'll be found on more than one plane. What about Agnishvatas? Are they only found on the higher mental plane? Or do you, or should we also look at the lower mental plane and think that a type of Agnishvata may be found there because they are a dual hierarchy? What about Agni Chaitans? They're found in volcanoes and all kinds of physical etheric expressions. Could they also, in their higher expression, be found somewhere else? Agni Chaitans? Do you see what I've done here? How I've done it? I'm sure you do. Look. Agnishvata, Agnishvata. Agni Suryan, Agni Suryan. Agni Chaitan, Agni Chaitan. See how that works? Reflection. Okay, so anyway, we studied that together, though. These particular types of devas who are the builders on the lower planes, but they have their higher correspondences, and the Agni Suryans are the fiery essences of Buddhi. That's very interesting. So when you're having a wonderful transported experience into oneness or something, a great realization of beauty, of harmony, and maybe a piece of music just takes you someplace so you know something superb about the creation, that's the Agni Suryans at work, the higher Agni Suryans. Okay. Remember that for later when I ask you what you learned today. Okay. Okay. So there is much archetypal harmony occurring in this whole process, and the distortions of the world of becoming have not yet taken place. What is the world of becoming compared to the world of being? Yeah, okay. Okay, so then what planes will we put it on? Okay, if you want to go cosmic, you would be correct. What if we stay systemic? The world of becoming compared to the world of being in a solar systemic, solar logoic context. Okay, I think you might be correct in one respect. So the world of becoming would be the lower 18 subplanes, or from the solar logoic perspective, it might even be the lower 21 subplanes. Is anything becoming in the egoic lotus rather than just being? Becoming is a process in time, isn't it? Yeah, it's unfolding. What? Yeah, indeed. So the world of becoming from the solar logoic point of view might even include the egoic lotus and the higher and the 21 subplanes. In which case, the world of being is pretty much the cosmic ethers. Although, as you said, from a cosmic perspective, well, not from a cosmic perspective, not just the cosmic physical plane, but the cosmic astral plane and the cosmic mental plane, part of it, would be part of the world of becoming. In other words, Agni, this is the first time I've ever said this, and I don't know if it's correct, but it sounds great. Agni is the Lord of the cosmic world of becoming. I'm going to remember that by writing it in red. Agni is the Lord of the cosmic world of becoming. Okay. All right. That's what he says, the personality of the solar logos. All right, let's go on. So the whole building process, let's summarize it, is musical, cooperative, and collaborative. And these devas know what they're doing, and they work in a way together which we primitive human beings are only just intuiting slightly that one day we might be able to do. The beginning of group work, well, if you think about it, we're trying to learn group work. But do you think a good choir has a whole lot to learn about group work? Maybe they do, but they know something. Everybody's got their parts. Everybody listens to everybody else. You can't stick out too much, otherwise you ruin the blended effect. A good choir knows a lot about group work. So we should remember that when we're thinking about trying to work in a group with each other. You know, and we even have an expression, well, we really make music together, you know, like that. So that can be sort of a metaphor for group work and group cooperation. All right. Now, moving right along, the molds grew fast beneath their hands. Well, I don't really think they have hands, per se, but we're in the archetypal worlds, and what are molds? M-O-U-L-D-S. It's not the same as M-O-L-D-S. Molds, you know, M-O-L-D-S are these mildew. You don't want it to grow. It's spores. It's a sort of a low plant life, and it makes you sneeze and goes into your brain and makes you senile. You know, it does all those good things. Of course, if we study cosmic fire enough, you never can tell. Most of the, my friend Keith Bailey said, well, you know, most of the really good disciples in the Tibetans group lost their minds. So just keep studying. All right, the molds grew fast beneath their hands. So they are shaping things up, right? These are the builders of the true forms, the ideas of things, and the hands is symbolic. It has to do, what does symbolic hands mean? Symbolically, hands, symbolically. Okay, symbolically. It is the power to move things here and there. If you have the power to arrange things here and there with your mind, then you are actually using your mental hands, your metaphorical hands. It's the ability to manipulate matter, pattern, substance. Form, activity, substance, and desire are at my hand, the seventh ray says. Okay. The sacred plane of juncture, we'll read a little bit more together. The sacred plane of juncture, the fourth great plane, became the sphere within the great circle which marked the goal for man, the great circle. Okay, now we've often said, where's man's monad? Now that you've memorized page 35, where is man's monad? Man's monad is found upon what plane? We all know, right? All right? So, if man's monad, come on now, open up. Well, that's too small. I'll get back to something we can see. Here we go. This is it. Next one. Bigger. All right, where's man's monad, and why is his hierarchy on the fourth level? Where is man's monad on this chart? It's up here, isn't it? Yeah, even though these particular beings are called the prototypes of the monads. They're much greater. The prototypes. Man's monad is on the second subplane. Why is his hierarchy found on the fourth cosmic subplane? See, it's not on the same level as the monad at all, is it? In other words, is our goal the monadic plane in terms of our service? Where is our service, really? Suppose our service is on the fourth subplane, and suppose we as a monadic group are really expressing ourselves on the fourth subplane. Why would we be there? What is our function? What is it about the fourth subplane? Why would we be there? What are we supposed to do from that fourth subplane? We're in the middle. What are we supposed to do? What's the destiny of man? What's his service? What's the ray that rules us? Begins with the word harmony. Fourth ray. What's our job? Harmonize what? Yes, and that's the general statement. It's true. But now look at the map. What are we supposed to harmonize? Why do we have a middle position? Why are we a bridge? Exactly. It is our task to harmonize the higher triad and the lower triad. That which is above with that which is below. That's our destiny. Of course, first we have to harmonize ourselves, don't we? You can't very well bring harmony to something else when you don't have it yourself. So first our job is to harmonize within the human kingdom. The fourth ray is coming in 2025. Maybe we'll have a shot at it. And then begin to harmonize the higher and the lower kingdoms, the higher and the lower hierarchies. This is our task. Our fourth kingdom is in between the seven. We have to harmonize the kingdoms. Our fourth creative hierarchy is in between the seven creative hierarchies, which are manifested. Harmonize the manifested creative hierarchies. Yeah. Yes, well, of course it will be, because harmonization does elevate, and dissonance drags you down. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of very dissonant music today in the world, and it has the effect of imprisoning consciousness, torturing consciousness, really, and then harmony liberates you up into the heavens. So we need more harmony. Okay, it's coming. All right, let's go on. See, come on. This computer, there's a rebellion going on here. All right, I know you think my computer is justified. Yes, my lower mind is not tuned with my computer. And this, of course, gives us a moment to breathe. Are you ready? How was that? Okay. The sacred plane of juncture, the fourth great plane, became the sphere wherein the greater circle marked the goal for man. What is about this greater circle? Where are you going to find a greater circle? I'm going to try to find a circle for you. And, this is terrible. This is robbing time. Okay. I'm going to find a circle for you, however, very shortly. Oh, goodness. Is there any computer expert? Pretty soon we're just going to have to open a book and talk, Anyway, turn to your chart number 13. Have you seen that chart, number 13? I don't know why I'm having so much trouble getting this to move. It's stalling up on. Well, pretty soon it's going to be lunchtime, so you're not even hungry. Okay, I'm having a little trouble finding. I know what I'll do. Just hold your concentration, and maybe we can make it possible to. I just hate that spinning circle, All right. Okay, here we're coming. We're getting there now, hopefully. But the blue spinning circle, the robber of time. There it is. Where is that? I know what I'm looking for. It's something else. That's what I'm looking for. I got it. Okay. Which circle are we talking about? So have I. The sacred plane of juncture. The fourth great plane became the sphere within the greater circle. The sphere within the greater circle which marked the goal for man. Which is the greater circle? What is this red circle? It doesn't look like a circle on that screen. It looks like an oval, but Okay, you've got three circles. One is green, one is blue, one is red. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, but look where they. Yes. What you just said is very interesting. you see this little hand here? That's the causal body. Okay, that little thing, that little triangle. Okay. So this is the world of personality, the green circle. And it goes for 18 subplanes. But notice how big is the blue circle. And if you're going to call that the world of soul, then you're going to have to agree with DK, who says that the spiritual triad is the true soul of man. In other words, this causal body is a limiting condition of soul, or a limiting condition of consciousness, which we normally call the soul, but it's not the true soul. The true soul is a larger sentiency which embraces 5 planes. So let's put it like this. Green circle, world of humanity. Blue circle, world of hierarchy. Red circle? What then? Red circle? World of Shambhala. Right. And in the red circle, the Buddhic plane is the middlemost circle, isn't it? Middlemost plane, middlemost sphere, isn't it? So that's the meaning of what this came to, where it said, and became the sphere within the greater circle which marked the goal for man, and now we know the goal for man is the Buddhic plane, the middlemost sphere in the Shambhalic circle, and what is its purpose? To bring harmonization to the kingdoms of nature and to bring harmonization eventually to the hierarchies which are manifested. That's our goal. So I guess it helps to get along, doesn't it? If we're going to fulfill our destiny, we have to learn group harmony among ourselves, and that will lead to our wider destiny. Is that clear? Okay, is it agreeable? Does anybody not want to do that? Would you rather just keep fighting? Of course, I know it's been a long time though. I mean, all these Norsemen, they used to be quite some fighters, but somehow they've developed this passion for peace. How did that happen? How did the Scandinavian countries become peace-loving? You had all the fights before, right? Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes, well, because that's that's interesting. The astrological reason the Scandinavian soul is Libra. Now, why should that be? I don't know, but it is. Yes, yes, some of us are, yes, yes. But I feel a song coming on, okay. Did he say so? If you can find that, I'd be very interested. I'm always interested in these references. Did you have a question, thought? Yes. Everybody has the right to speak up. So that's what Scandinavia says, right? Oh, yes, yes, yes. Equality of expression. Everybody had a right to speak up in the circle of speech. Yes, okay, that makes sense. And in a lot of native traditions, that's true as well. The talking stick and so forth. Equality, though, the idea of equality. Well, I'll tell you what. There is this monad thing, because Libra is the royal road to Shambhala, and on the monadic level, all are equal. So that is a Libra way of symbolizing Shambhala. Yes? Oh, okay, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Well, that, sounds a little bit scandocentric, but maybe not. All right. Let's see, Martha, we're not supposed to be out there. We're supposed to let the patients eat first. So, Om, said the Mighty One. Om, said the Mighty One. He breathed forth to the 5th, the plane which is the burning ground, the meeting place for fire. This time a cosmic note is heard beneath the sound systemic. The fire within, the fire without, meet with the fire ascending. The guardians of the cosmic fire, the devas of phohatic heat, watched o'er the forms that formless stood, waiting a point in time. All right. Let's see what that means. Whoops. Something just happened. Okay. All right. Sphere within the great circle, the goal for man, etc. Okay. Now, we have so far the mighty one, the solar logos, has concentrated on the atmic plane and the Buddhic plane, and now his area of concentration will be? Right? Okay? So, he breathed forth to the fifth. So what does the fifth mean in this case? Is it a group of living beings? Is it a plane? What is it? It's a plane, isn't it? Yeah, he breathed forth to the fifth plane, the plane which is the burning ground, the meeting place for fire. How can we explain that? Is the mental plane the plane of fire? Yes, right. Is it a burning ground? It is a burning ground. Okay, what is the second rule? The third rule, triple the call and long it takes to sound it forth. Let the disciples sound that call across the desert, over the seas, and through the fires which separate him from the something and hidden door. Through the fires which separate him from the door of the soul, door of initiation. So he has to pass through the fires of the mental plane. That is particularly a burning ground. And it is the ground that we are expected to pass through when we say the burning ground has done its work. In other words, we've done our work on the lower mental plane. So in rule number 1, we're told the burning ground has already done its work. We're told that on the mental plane, all the beings in cosmos, all the self-conscious beings, they all meet. They all have at least a mental vehicle. So he breathed forth to the fifth plane, the plane which is the burning ground, the meeting place for various kinds of fire. How many fires meet on the mental plane? 3 minds unite. How many fires meet? 1, 2, 3? Got to be 2. What about 3? Mental unit, what fire? What fire rules the mental unit? How about fire by friction? It does. Fire by friction rules the mental unit and all of the lower atomic triangle. What fire rules the sun of mind on the third and second subplane of the mental plane? Yes. What fire does monastic permanent atom represent? Okay. So it's expression of the monad. It represents electric fire. And he actually tells us there's a very close connection between the monastic permanent atom and electric fire. He spends that in the beginning of the book, a Treatise on Cosmic Fire. So 3 fires meet on the mental plane. Now, when you yourself are having a burning ground experience, how does mental fire enter into that? Have you had a burning ground experience? Go into politics, you'll have one. They all have to pass through the fire to get that far. And if they're not tested, right? In our country, we have the primary system, which means that the Republicans are over here and the Democrats are over here, and they spend a year just fighting among themselves until someone can emerge from each and then fight with each other. So what what has fire to do with our burning ground experience? What have the mental fire? Well, what does it mean personally to you? I mean, if you've passed through something you consider to be a burning ground experience, how has the mind been involved in it? You have to control your mind, but you do. We're supposed to burn away our illusions, aren't we? We're supposed to somehow see truth. We're supposed to have this mental fire which allows us to finally burn through to some degree of clarity, aren't we? The friction of true ideas and false ideas. And we have to enter into that fire and finally separate the, what do you say? What do you separate from the dross? The dross is what you throw away, and there's the true metal, the ore, and you separate that from the dross. You separate the truth from falsehood. So in that frictional battle between the true and false on the mental plane, there's a big burning ground for the disciple who's trying to get rightly oriented and maybe just filled with glamours and illusions. We have so many glamours, we have to use the mind to try to clarify what they are. We oftentimes feel embarrassed by what we may have followed before. You know, like he says, with the sixth-rate types, they're so eager to follow this, follow that, and finally they feel like a fool because they realize what they've been running after and they know everybody else sees it too. So we often go through a lot of pain in the battle of trying to emerge from the forest of error. But then when finally the truth enters the mind, that type of friction subsides. And then you can be open to the downflow from realms where the truth really is found. Om, said the Mighty One, he breathed forth to the fifth, the plane where is the burning. Now, it's not the only burning ground, but let's just say that in terms of conscious burning grounds, you know, things that you really willingly step onto, the mind has to be active. You may go through the burning ground of physical sacrifice or emotional deprivation, and you're almost unconscious about what's happening unless you have a mind. You know, why is this happening to me? Look at all these people that are losing their lives in war, and you know, it forces you to think. Finally, when you can think, you can actually realize what are the stakes of the situation you're in and what's trying to be burned away. So let's just assume that a burning ground requires a mental factor, okay? Okay, yeah, actually, what I want to say to everybody, sort of the rules of this game, and Morya, I'll talk to you in a minute about this. The electronic group only gets to speak at the end of the day, which means like 6:30 our time, 6 o'clock our time, subtract 7 hours to the east, which is about 11 o'clock or so, a.m. in the Eastern time zone. So then I'll call on you, but Morya, if you'll hang in there when we take our lunch break, I'll talk to you. Okay, so we just have a few more minutes only before we are forced to go to lunch. He breathed forth to the, you know, we are well fed. I don't know if you've ever noticed that when you go home and step on the scale. Okay. Om, said the Mighty One, he breathed forth to the fifth, the meeting place for fire. Okay, we're continuing with the creative process. The Soto Logos continues to use the great word of the Brahmic aspect, AUM. There is both the sound and the breath. The breath is of the first aspect, so is the sound at certain times. But the sound is a form-creating agency related to the second aspect and the third. As the sound sounds, the vitalizing activity of the breath goes forth. Okay, and anyway, I've talked about a lot of this stuff, so I don't need to deal with it right now. The plane of fire, all fires meet, all minds meet in self-conscious beings. We have to pass through the burning ground of the mental plane before being liberated into the fourth cosmic ether. We have to dispel our illusions. That's the final burning ground until we're finally liberated into the fourth initiation. And there's a plane of purification here because mind is fire. So the real purity we need, physical purity, astral purity, these are just reflections of the kind of mental purity which is required of the true disciple. So the burning ground impulses, the burning grounds experienced on the lower planes are impulsed from the mental plane by the Agnish Vata. So let's have our mind if we want to consciously pass through a burning ground. Have you arranged for a burning ground in this life? Have you been forced onto burning grounds, or have you plotted and planned so you could actually step deliberately onto a burning ground? Is it, I mean, do burning grounds happen to you, or have you made the choice, I'm stepping onto this burning ground? Like some of these people that do these fire walks, you know. How many here have done the fire walk? Oh, it's a second-ray group. Okay. If I went to a six-ray group, everyone would shoot their hands up, you know. I know some people have done the fire walk. It's quite a determined thing. But that's like deliberately stepping onto the burning ground, right? Generally, you don't get thrown out onto the coals, do you? But in your own life, how has it worked for you? Have you deliberately stepped onto the burning ground knowing it was hot? Have you? Okay. Well, that's kind of an Aries attitude, isn't it? Bring me to the fire. Lead it on, right? Okay. And some of us may be back into burning grounds. It's called the hot seat. Okay, there's a way of doing that too. But, you know, deliberate stepping on the burning ground requires a very cool head, you know, very warm heart and a very cool head. Can you think of a burning ground you'd like to step on in the forthcoming weeks, months, years? No, no, no. Too hot, way too hot for me. Well, you know, because that's a question, because DK says, look, if you're not having a crisis, what about a crisis? Engineer it. If you're not having a burning ground, well, why not? So, you know, but I would say a lot of courage and bravery, sort of Martian, Aretian, fire sign virtues are required to want to put your foot to the fire. Think what you're kind of doing there. You're putting Pisces on the fire. It's kind of the burning ground is sort of the meeting of Aries and Pisces. You might get steam. Anyway, the burning ground leads to the door of initiation. So it is a deliberate treading of the path, even though it leads through the burning ground in which you are reduced to your essentials in terms of the next door through which we have to pass. Well, anyway, we're dealing with the fifth plane. I know lunch is almost upon us. And we have to pass the burning, etc. And then it says, this time a cosmic note is heard beneath the sound systemic. And for the first time, a cosmic note is heard beneath the systemic sounds. Now, the idea of systemic sounds means that it is the Solar Logos, who is semi-cosmic, and he's sounding his note. But now, after lunch, we're going to deal with what the nature of this cosmic sound may be and why it does not appear until the mental plane is vitalized by the AUM. Okay? All right. Off to lunch. Yes. We'll see you at 2 o'clock, which is 1 hour and 15 minutes from now. Okay? We'll see you then. Okay. Right. I'll go back here. And okay. Right. Mauri, Hatyaja, Tim, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. Gary?
Yeah, I can, and so can everybody else. Everybody who is electronic can hear you. So, hello. So actually what I was going to say, I saw your hand go up. I just saw it, but it's not generally until late. You know, what I'm going to do with these seminars is I'm going to have some seminars which are on electronics, which will be much more interactive. But when I'm sitting here in the middle of a physical plane class, then the interactivity with the electronically attending people is just limited to the end of the story, which is, you know, still a number of hours away. But anyway, what's on your mind? And thanks for coming.
Nothing. I've never actually participated in a webinar, so I was just kind of wondering what would happen if I pushed the hand thing.
Well, if you put your hand raised, I'll call on you. Yeah. But the thing is, I'm a little bit.
I was just following along with some questions for you, but
only
in terms of just allowing me to participate in terms of the thinking process.
Yes. Go ahead.
So when you write questions, those are. Is there any particular way that you actually review those questions? Or
in an interactive seminar with electronic attendees, I would. But here I'm in a kind of a hybrid situation. And the hybrid situation is I'm actually teaching a class in Denmark, which is the 11th Cosmic Fire class. So this, I have to attend mostly to the in-presence group. But what I'm doing is I'm offering this also to an electronic group that can, basically attend free of charge. And I am also videoing everything that we do, so that whatever has transpired will be available on DVDs and videos and so forth on the net almost the next day. And then allowing the electronic group, when we come to summarize everything, when there's about an hour left of the class, to interact a bit. But this particular type of webinar is not designed for the electronic interactivity. If I were not in a physical plane class, it would be. So like I say, it's a bit of a hybrid. So if you write down questions...
Well, thanks for explaining it, Michael. I'm all set.
Yeah. In other words, I'm so attentive to what's going on here in class that I so often miss what's being asked. Now, Kay is helping me, or in Australia. Wait, no, she's not there right now. See, Brett is probably asleep in California, and Kay is maybe asleep in Australia. And but usually they help me field the questions, or could. And because I can't keep my eye on too many things at once. But anyway, look, I'm really glad that you're able to drop in, and we're just scratching the surface, It'd be nice to be able to...
Thank you for explaining it, Michael.
You bet, you bet. And it's good to connect with you again, and I owe you a letter, and anyway, thanks for answering that thing about the flame and the cone, and I'll use that as soon as I can get back to dealing with the students. We have, in the Morya Federation coming up, all this intake time. The students are coming in, so December is absolutely the busiest month. And but then, the next time we have a faculty webinar, you're on that, and that's much more interactive. So I'll let you know when the next thing will be. It's probably, we're working on Rule 1 in the Rays and Initiations right now, and we're reading the text and so forth, and that probably is going to be next Saturday night, something like that. So I'll send it out to all the faculty members, and sometime you and I will just have a chat on we'll just have a chat on the Skype or something, and just kind of get caught up a little bit that way. Is that good?
Thank you again, Michael.
You bet, you bet. Okay, Hatyaja. Okay, we'll see you later. It's great to have you attending as you can, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay. Now I gotta put you back on mute. Okay. All the best. All the best. Nice to see you again. Bye bye. Okay, everybody. We're kind of going to lunch here, and we'll be back by 2 o'clock our time, which is in 1 hour and 9 minutes. And then we'll continue with the stanza 2, which is basically the creative process of our solar system. At least that's the system we're attempting to apply it to, with a big workout on the word AUM, which is the word of manifestation through the 5 planes of 5 superhuman planes, the Brahmic planes. We have 13 of these stanzas. We've done already 4. This is the 5th. We have only a 5-day class. I don't think we can finish all of them. And even the ones we so-called finished, we haven't finished. We've just started. But thank you for attending. And we will catch you a little bit after lunch here.